Can you join me in the pledge of allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Select Board meeting, Monday, February 12th. And under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. I would like to acknowledge the passing of Constable Joseph Migliori of Westport. I knew him, and he was an interesting, good man. His passing occurred on February 6th at home. I don't know if anybody knew him, but we express our condolences to the family of Mr. Migliori. I would point out to everybody, we've had a 3-week hiatus from Select Board meetings, but now from here on out we will run on the every other week basis. So the next meeting would be February 26th, Monday. And there will be an executive session tonight, later on, just to make everybody aware of that. So if there's are there any other acknowledgements or recognitions? I'm hearing none. The first item on the agenda are the appointments and resignations. Well, there are two. The first one is a request from the Finance Committee to appoint Christopher Thrasher to the Infrastructure Oversight Committee and Duncan Law to the Internet Advisory Committee. So two different people for two different committees. And Jim, any comments here? Any
No,
background?
I think the chairs are aware of both appointments. I don't have any comment.
Okay.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Would you be moving both?
Yes.
Okay, motion made on both of these appointments. Any further discussion? Chris, I see you're here. Do you have anything you wish to say?
I'll probably say I'll do the whole thing.
Okay. We just didn't want to deny you the opportunity. I don't think it'll affect the outcome of the vote. At least I hope not. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, and congratulations to Mr. Duncan Law to appointment also to the Internet Advisory Committee. Thank you. B is the request from Beverly Bish, Council on Aging, to appoint Kim Pensilfini to the part-time position of Supported Day Program Assistant Director. Beverly? Good evening.
Good evening. This is Kim. Good job on the name, by the way. Pennsylvania's a mouthful.
I practiced on last name.
She is somebody who has retired from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, where she worked 8 years as an administrative assistant in the Office of Advancement Services. Her prior work experience was also office manager and bookkeeping at 2 law firms where she worked. Because of her bookkeeping background and administrative background, we really need some assistance with supportive day program billing and budgeting, and we thought this would be a good fit. So we are thrilled to have some. It's been a year since we've had an assistant in that position, so it's going to work out very well.
And if you look at poor Connie back there, you'll sympathize. She needs help.
Connie's our supportive day program director, so she's been without the assistant for the year. So it's going to. I think this is going to be a good fit for us. Kim also volunteered with us so that she could see. She wanted to do some volunteer work or work part-time. She wasn't sure. She came in, she volunteered, liked the supportive day program, and said, oh, this is something that I think I'd like to do.
Great.
So we nabbed her.
Kim, you wish to say anything?
No, just have joined the ranks of the recently retired, and it's a beautiful thing, and I love it. And I've been checking out all of the area centers, the Council on Aging centers, and I'm so impressed at what they do. So they have so much to offer to the older community, which is much needed, and it's wonderful programs, a lot to offer. So
Well, thank you for putting your hat in the ring, so to speak.
absolutely.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
It's within the budget, right? It's not a grant position.
It's not,
within the budget.
it's, the town doesn't pay for any of it, it all comes out of supportive day
That's
revolving.
what they have. Great. I'll move it.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll see you around.
Mr. Chairman, there was a question on the hourly rate as well. Did you want that referred to the Personnel Board?
Yes, I already did refer to the personnel board. Some of our rates are pretty low, and I had, probably it was 2.5, 3 months ago, I hired an assistant for me, which was a new position, and I, in error, thought I could negotiate a rate. So I spoke with Kim, and we kind of talked about a rate. So the rate that is on the books is lower than the rate that she and I talked about, and that was my error, because I thought, because of my assistant, that I could do that. So I'm looking to go to the personnel board. I already sent them an email, and then the select board. Our rates at the COA are much lower than a lot of the other rates throughout the town, and I know Jim put together a survey to find out for personnel, to see, you know, and I know the personnel board wants to work on looking at where are we and you know, how can we keep people and, you know, pay them a decent salary.
So I just asked the board to refer it to the Personnel Board to review the hourly rate.
Okay. Do you need a motion on that?
Yes, if I give a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Best of luck with that, and I'm
Perfect.
sure it'll be fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Can I read with you? You got some? Do you want an update? Oh, you guys too busy.
No.
Two things, two real quick things
Okay.
with the Council on Aging.
They're not on the agenda, so I gotta...
Oh, okay, well,
No, go ahead.
usually you ask me what's going.
There's a new sheriff in town.
We have a $7,000 grant from South Coast Community Foundation for the Senator Michael Roderick's Empowerment Fund for our to pay a strategic planner to facilitate us with our strategic planning and going forward as the whole town ages very significantly. And the other one that I received, or we received, was through Bristol Elder Services. They gave us $19,000 for transportation, $15,000 for staff, $4,000 for gas, oil, and expenses and things like that. So I've really been, continue to work on grants and trying to get some to support, you know, the center. So, working on those.
Great, thank you.
So, thank you.
Be well. Okay, action items. There are a number. The first is A request from Carol Freitas to approve the following donations, anonymous, four of these, $425 Stop and Shop gift cards. Second is from Winifred M. Tripp, $100 in memory of L.A. Levesque, discretionary use. And the third is from the Westport United Congregational Church, $500, also for discretionary use. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Total is 700, right?
It's not listed here, but that would be, yeah. Is that correct, Paul? 700? Yeah, I think 504.25. Good catch. Okay, discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. There were none opposed. The next item, B, is a petition request to lay out the way known as Rita Lane Extension and refer the petition to the planning board. Jim, maybe you could give us some background on this?
And so there's a citizen's petition to have the road accepted, the Rita Lane extension, which I believe is off White Oak Run. At this point, the Board of Selectmen just needs to accept the layout plan and petition and refer to the planning board for a recommendation. The board will have to hold a public hearing in the coming months, but it goes to the planning board first.
Mm-hmm. And that's in the package that you sent to us?
Yes, I believe so.
Yep.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee?
I'll move.
Is Rita Lane accepted?
Rita Lane is accepted.
How about White Oak Run?
White Oak Run is, I don't believe has ever officially been accepted, but the town did, I think, construct, or put funds in to construct that or repair that from a dirt road to a paved road.
You made a motion, right?
Yeah.
Was it seconded?
I'll second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Okay, any further discussion? We need to cover that now. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, the motion carries unanimously. Let me just check something here. Okay. Thank you. The next item is C, the request from Carl F. Tripp, FL Tripp and Sons Incorporated, to transfer or donate 2 parcels of land to the town of Westport, 0 Route 88, parcel 54-33-0, and 0 Main Road, parcel 54-33A-0. Jim?
Yeah, so this is one parcel that abuts the transfer station to the north, and a small portion of the, I guess, the cemetery property, fire and police station property to the north as well. It used to be one parcel. It was split in half when Route 88 was put through. He's looking to donate these 2 parcels to the town. It does abut the transfer station to the north. I think it'd be a good parcel to have. So I would recommend that the board consider putting this on the town meeting warrant
Okay.
to accept as a donation.
What is the pleasure of the committee?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion on this?
Yeah, can I just, so the process here is we're putting this on the warrant for town meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that wasn't clear, so thank you for making that clear, Shauna. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, and then this is a select board request, item D, to proceed with the establishment of the Westport Municipal Light Plant to implement the programs authorized by a vote on Article 22 of the Westport Town Meeting of May 4th, 2023, and to request that the town attorneys assist with this process. Jim, maybe you could give us some background on this, and Shauna, I know you're
I'd like to
conversant with this.
defer to Shauna on this one.
So the Internet Advisory Committee has been, there's 2 requests we have to the select board. I thought the other one was coming up tonight, so that was my bad. But the town meeting votes already voted to establish a municipal light plant, but we haven't gotten any of the language or the lawyers kind of crafting what that would look like. So we are not asking the select board to approve proceeding with this. All we really want to do is have the, refer it to KP Law and have them start drafting up something. So we're not looking, the decision to allow us to form a municipal light plant has already been made. We're not asking tonight for you to approve the municipal light plant. We're just asking to refer it to KP Law to draft the proper language. We do have the other item that we have is a request to be on the town meeting warrant to have the municipal light plant officers be elected officials. And so there's gonna be a warrant article to if there is a light plant created, to have those be elected officials. So that's going to be on the warrant. This is just to have legal start working on the paperwork for what it would look like.
Sounds reasonable. What's the sentiment of the committee?
And how much is that going to cost to have legal do that?
I don't know, we routinely refer matters like this to legal they spend a few hours looking at it.
I'm just wondering. That's taxpayer money, right?
It's all taxpayer money.
Okay.
We're performing the will of the taxpayers, establishing this committee. Do we need a motion to just ask KP Law to start drafting it?
The board can direct me, the chair can direct me.
We can direct. There's no need to take a vote on this. It's pretty routine in terms of doing this.
We absolutely would come back with the establishment of the committee. Like that obviously would need some discussion, but what we need here is the language to react to.
Okay. So we'll do that by directive.
Yep.
Any further comments? Thank you. Okay, the next item is E, request from Spindrift Oysters for permission to install and maintain conservation activities on Farm 2815, Tract 3061. Jim?
So they're applying for a grant for some state or federal funding, and they just need the owners or the town, because we do lease the property, to sign off on the application. They'll be looking for some equipment and 400 bivalve gear cycling and biofouling control, Pest Management Conservation System, and 472 Access Control. So this would be on Farm 2815, Tract 3061. I believe the property owner or the leasee is here if you have any specific questions. But it's a grant just to help them provide additional aquaculture products for their oyster fields.
I see somebody from Spindrift is here. Do you wish to say anything, Krista?
Sorry, I've had my hat on all day.
Quite all
It's the
right.
longest hair I've had in a long time.
Good to see you. It's for the benefit of the record, just state your name.
Right, Chris Dusson, Spindrift Voicers. So basically, we try to get grants all the time. There's lots of grants out there for agriculture and aquaculture. It really helps out what we do. This new one from the USDA and our CS is basically what Jim was explaining. It's basically money to help with biofouling on farms and expenses related to gear not operating correctly because of the biofouling and not having the manpower to really handle the situation and the time to do it, so to speak. Has some other things that include like marking of the sites, better site marking for everybody around, boaters, all that kind of stuff and everything to meet all language and all requirements and stuff like that. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Most grants we've ever done, they've actually been just fine with our leases from the town, copies of that. This one is a new one. It's the first one I've done with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And they said they would like a little bit more than just a copy of our lease. So
Okay,
we talked to Chris, we talked to Jim, and we're here.
all right. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Through you. Jim, no complaints on file, right, of waterway issues? at all?
Not that I'm aware of now. And Chris Leonard did look over these, and he was not opposed to them.
All right, I'll move it.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Congratulations.
luck.
Good
I
to see
have
you.
flyers if you're actually interested.
We got a minute.
Okay.
Packet.
Yeah, but
You're all
just in case. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's, Mr. Brewer, for some reason F dropped off on, this is Jim's copy with the recommendations on it. Bay Breeze is up next.
Yeah.
Bay Breeze was posted.
Yeah, I have that.
You have that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I
It's
don't
not
have
on
my
this
one.
No, it's not,
Oh.
it's not on the one with the TA recommendations, but it is on the posted one, so as long as that's what you have, that's fine.
Yes, that's what I have. It is posted and I will read it.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention and attention of others. So 2F is a request from Bay Breeze Incorporated for permission to install and maintain conservation activities on Farm 2679, Tract 2904. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's posted. Jim,
Yes.
any background on this? I know we have.
It's basically the
It's
same
the
thing.
same request.
Okay. Well, Carrie Ann, I'll give you the same offer I gave. I assume if you wish to come up and speak.
Sure.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Just like, my name's Carrie Ann Fenley, owner of Bay Breeze Inc. Just as Toph mentioned, it's just a grant with the federal government, a little bit more oversight. I think over the years, we've probably applied to 15 or 20. You get about maybe 20% success. So we were just going through the motions. It helps switch out our, as Toph was saying, our gear and buy additional gear. And it's also a help to prevent any of our fouling from staying in the water. Part of their conservation effort is to bring our cages on land, let them dry out naturally, and then put them back in the water clean. Very simple process. Like he said, very similar outlook. They just wanted a sign off from the owner.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Same question, no issues, correct?
No issues.
All right, I'll move it.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you again.
Now we fall back into
Already got-
it,
It's just a corrected agenda.
right? No, but that's the only thing that fell off of it, right?
Yes, I believe so. It was added after.
But it was posted, so that was important. Okay, that concludes F. The next is G, a request from Kristen Stinson, who is the town clerk, to approve the warrant for the 2024 presidential preference primaries election on March 5th, 2024. So this is presidential primary, and it's just right around the corner. So this is in the package. Tim, maybe you could give us any further.
Yeah, this is the standard one that we have for each election. The Board of Selectmen have to approve it. The one that I have here has been corrected. Shauna pointed out which one? Our Lady of Grace.
The packet said American Legion Hall. And
It's now Our Lady of Grace, so the correct one's here, so.
Okay, so we're voting on the corrected one.
Yes.
Okay, and that's something that we have to do to have the primary, right?
It is.
This
It's
is
just
not-
names
this
of
is-
polling locations.
Yeah, this is not debatable, really.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, and questions, comments, further discussion from the committee? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. H is a request from Sue Brayton, who is the treasurer and collector, to accept a donation for the benefit of the town farm of approximately $20,000 from an anonymous donor. Jim, maybe you could give some background and also why it's approximately $20,000 instead of $20,000.
Yes,
What's the reason?
so as it states, we have an anonymous donor that's willing to donate approximately $20,000. This is in securities stocks, I believe, so they did not have an exact figure. They won't have that until they accept the final payment, but it seems pretty straightforward. It'll go to the town farm for different reasons. There's no specific requirements or limitations on what can be used for at the town farm. I'd recommend approval. It's a great opportunity for the
Second.
town.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on this item? I think it's pretty clear. We're happy to have this anonymous donation, and that's great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously, Paula. Thank you. The next item is I, request from Chris Capone, Conservation Agent, for a town meeting article to transfer parcels 79-4 and 5 into the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. Jim, could you tell us what that's all about?
I'll just say Russ Moran could not make it tonight. Chris Capone asked if we could continue this to the next meeting.
Okay? We will do that. We don't need a motion on that. I look forward to that discussion, though. That would be worthy. Okay, the next item is J, if I have this right. J. It has several parts. I'll read the whole thing, which I'm supposed to do, and then we'll have discussion on each piece. There are 3 pieces to this item. So it's a requests plural from the Infrastructure Oversight Committee. And the first bullet is to place on the April 2024 town ballot a vote to approve a debt exclusion for a loan from either the public municipal bond market or the state revolving fund of up to $35 million for the construction of the entire Route 6 water and sewer project. Second item is to place on the May 2024 annual town meeting warrant an article to approve a debt exclusion for a loan from either the public municipal bond market or the state revolving fund of up to $35 million for the construction of the entire Route 6 water and sewer project. And the third bullet is to determine a betterment policy for the so-called bettered properties, quote unquote, for the entire Route 6 water and sewer project. Jim, maybe you could take us through this and give us some background.
I think we have some members of the IOC committee that would like to address the board.
That would be fine for me. Come right up, gentlemen.
So, good evening, everybody. First order of business here is that the Infrastructure Oversight Committee has a quorum. 5 of the 8 members are here, and I anticipated that, and as clerk of the IOC, I did post this meeting for, because we will have a quorum, so I'd like to ask our chair to please open the meeting.
Okay, so moved. Second. Noted.
We know who you are, but
You're calling me
have
to
the
order.
benefit.
So we know, I'm Maury May of the Infrastructure Oversight Committee,
And I'm Bob Daler, I'm the vice chair of the Oversight Committee.
And the meeting is called to order. So
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Go ahead.
And so, I have this, it's mostly been, read already. Can you just pass that along to the various members? But, so the three motions that we are recommending to the Board of Selectmen, and we actually had a major meeting of the Infrastructure Committee, many of you were there, in the auditorium of the new high school on January 24th. And at that meeting, the Infrastructure Oversight Committee did recommend putting the $35 million on the town ballot, putting the $35 million on the town meeting warrant. And then also, we wanted to recommend to you a betterment policy. And I have a couple of comments, and then Bob has a couple of
Go right ahead.
comments. My comments have to do on motion 1 and 2. And we are recommending the unusual step of taking the project to the ballot box before town meeting. In other words, putting the cart before the horse. Because of timing, we do want to speed up the process here. We also want to note that the $35 million cost figure is up to $35 million. It actually includes a $4 million buffer over the engineering estimate. And this number, either 35 or 31, could be even lowered by grants, earmarks, and loan forgiveness, or a combination of all three. Borrowing costs will be refined once bids are out and we get responses. And so with that comment on why we're going for the town ballot and the town meeting and the amounts, I would like to turn it over to the very important issue of our betterment policy. And I'd like to give that to Bob Daler, who knows more about betterment policy than anybody here.
So the idea of the borrowing amount is, authorizing the borrowing amount, as you know, is one thing. And then how whatever we borrow, how we pay that back is another thing. And so, that'll be really from three different buckets. All of the aid and debt forgiveness and anything that we can get from state and federal monies, that's the first level of payment. The town will pursue grants and has pursued grants and will continue to do that. So that's one bucket of money that goes to pay off the debt that we borrow. And the second is out of the general fund, or debt limited borrowing, but out of general municipal fund borrowing, there'll be a segment of that. And the third is betterments. That is, when the public utilities are brought in front of someone's home, the value of that home is increased by the presence of the public infrastructure. And in almost all towns and cities that do infrastructure work, there is a betterment charge. And those betterment charges vary all over the lot. And sometimes they vary, that is, the betterment charge is a percentage of the construction cost. And in some methodologies, they are a fixed fee, because if this were to go forward, we are likely to build this over time. We thought that the best thing to do was to fix the price of the betterment. And therefore, the percentage it represents of any contract will vary, but it looks as if it'll vary in narrow amounts. So roughly the split that we're hoping to achieve is that 20% of the cost of the remainder, the local cost, will be out of betterments, and 80% will be out of the general bonding townwide. And we did that, and that we'd like to set that at about $10,000. That's roughly half of what common betterment charges are. But the area that we intend to serve has among the lowest assessed value homes, and we are very sensitive to the fact that we can't impact them too deeply with the share of the cost. And in fact, the entire town benefits by having the sewer and the water quality that results in the river, the economic development that is allowed, so that there is a rationale for having a component paid generally. So the committee has, working with the Kleinfelder consultants, have a draft policy. We're going to bring that policy. It incorporates a standard methodology of so-called the EDU, that is the equivalent
Dwelling.
the commercial residential value. So every house, no matter whether it's a big house or a small house, whether it has 6 people living in it or 2 people living, the equivalent value is uniform throughout. So we never have to get into a struggle of how many people live there, how many bedrooms, who, is it house occupied, is it, that once the value is set, it's set for a house. For commercial properties and commercially zoned vacant lots, the consultants have looked at what is the maximum under the zoning, how big a building could you build, what is the equivalent commercial flow, and we convert that into the so-called EDUs. So a house is 1 EDU. If you have a business that generates 3 times a residential flow, that building would be charged 3 EDUs. So that's how the process works. It is one of the standard processes. There's nothing unique about that. And we think it's wise to, just out of pure equity, out of building a project over a very long period of time, let's try to keep everyone's costs. Now, the betterments, the program is to build water and sewer, and to extend water and sewer through the north part of town. We're recommending that no betterment charges be made for water, because there were no betterment charges assessed to any of the properties that are currently served by water. And there's sort of another equity argument to be made that, well, if you extend the water in front of the next house and the guy next door didn't pay anything, why should this person start paying for the whole water main? So the betterment charges apply only to sewer. When you extend drinking water, there is no betterment charge to offset that. So that's the recommended policy, and we're going to take up an actual draft of the policy for the select board to review at our meeting on the 21st.
When would you be presenting that back to the select board?
And we'll be presenting that once that's adopted by the committee. The committee's role is to be advisory to you all sitting as the water and sewer commissioners. So we will undertake that work and bring back an actual recommendation, the text of the betterment policy.
Questions and comments on any of this?
Okay, on the water, on the commercial, on the water, there'll be no betterment for that? Are we gonna do connection fees, or how are we gonna address that?
Connection fee is different than
The
betterment.
connection fees are different. There will be connection fees, of course.
We have to actually bring that up at our next meeting, because there will probably be connection fees from the town, and of course a a cost, incurred by the landowner.
And in all of these services, unlike what was done when the original water main was connected to Fall River, essentially the water main was put in the road and it was left there. All of the water and sewer work is proposed, all the design is, but the sewer is done, and for most of the water is done. It includes bringing a connection to everyone's property, so that no one has to then go back out and get a permit to go dig in the state highway and dig and connect to the sewer or water line. So that in the contract, all of the work that stays in the public way is inside the contract. The water and sewer services are brought directly to your home, where, as you know, in the north end, we have a lot of small residential streets that come out to Route 6. When we come to an intersection, we also bring a stub up into that street, and we're going to extend it up so that the people who live on the first homes on the corner then could connect in from the side street. Eventually, as we expand contracts in the future, those little stubs will get extended to serve the streets. So that under the approach we're taking is, when we bring the trunk line in Route 6, when it's done, anybody can connect to it, and the service is right at your yard. So you're only paying for the work that's on your property, and that's the owner's cost.
But, I appreciate all that information, but that information is background, because tonight, we're not really going to determine that. You'll be making a recommendation. The first two items, though, have timelines on them, and there's a certain order here. So I'd like to bring the betterment policy for the moment to conclusion, so we could discuss it later on.
Yes.
And get back to the first two, upon which the third one is dependent anyway. And we will be working on the betterments policy at a later date. Unless there are any questions in the meantime on the betterment policy.
I got a question.
I'm not taking public comment at the moment, but you will have the opportunity, sir.
Thanks.
Questions from the Board of Selectmen?
No, I just think it's good for them, and I appreciate their work, and to get out as much information to the public as possible, because April's gonna come up pretty quick. So the more information we get out, the more expectations we get out there, people will know what's going on to hopefully move this forward.
I got one more question. So, Bob, as far as like what you just stated about bringing the services out of the layout, state layout, which is good. I believe we were doing that already. Because after the meeting we had the other day, there was a notice of intent that went out for just contract one. So this revision on the notice of intent for the entire trunk line, we're updating that right now. When do you expect that that'll be ready and be prepared for the whole entire trunk line?
I think it's in the works now. It's probably next month or so.
Because one of the problems we did have is after we had that meeting, the next day I got bound from constituents that got a notice of intent for contract one. And it was, just more confusion. So the notice of intent will be filed with the DEP for the entire trunk line before we have town meeting on the ballot, correct?
I think Jim would have a better answer to
We've
that.
requested a timeline on that. They're working on it.
Okay. Well, I'm just, because I know we did hire Kleinfeld to do this, and we were promised 2 years ago to have this information, and I don't understand why we don't have it now.
Well, we have had a change in our focus, because, Manny, we were going to that meeting of 2 weeks ago Wednesday with a focus on contract one only. But giving the groundswell of support for going for the whole, the whole project.
I don't want to interrupt, John.
Yeah,
But-
we
but
did change
I'm
that at the
going
meeting,
to
yeah.
interrupt you, but I
And
don't
so
wanna
what we've been
interrupt
doing is playing a lot of catch-up.
Maury,
Yeah,
no, we're not playing catch-up. We don't have a cop in front of the horse.
yeah.
We hired Kleinfeld to design the trunk line from the front to beginning.
Yeah.
When we're talking about contracts, contracts were where we were gonna get money. So the bottom line is we needed to design the contract from the front to beginning. I just wanna know where we are for that.
Yeah.
I wanna know when we're gonna know what the exact amount is and when the notice of intent's gonna be done.
Yep.
Okay, but that item is different than the betterment discussion. That's a different piece.
That's what has to do with 1 and 2.
Yeah. All right, I want to just entertain any further questions on betterment, then go back to 1 and 2, and then come back to betterment if necessary. But the gentleman who wished to speak, were you wishing to speak on betterments?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Ron Machado. Yeah, I'd like to touch base on two things. One, the time frame, and the other one, the finances of it.
That's not the betterments, though.
No, well, the betterment is pretty much the tax part of it,
Yeah.
and that's all we're allowed to talk about is just the tax part of it.
The betterment is not the tax.
Yeah, it's not the taxes.
The betterment turns out to be a tax, doesn't it?
Well, whatever. But your comments seem to be related to the items 1 and 2 here, so if you would withhold that for the moment, because we haven't had a fulsome discussion on that, then I'll come back and give you an opportunity to
Thank
speak
you.
again. Don't worry. Well, let's do that, because I think it'd be more orderly, and I think there's a lot of questions on all of this. So let's deal with the first part, which was a motion at the meeting on the 24th of January. So to that issue, let's just be clear on what we're doing here. This is coming on the April ballot, second Tuesday in April. So this is not town meeting at all. This is the ballot. The second item deals with town meeting, and that's contingent upon the first one being accepted by the voters at the ballot in April. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
I mean, there would be no number 2 unless the first one passes, or at least for the time being.
Well,
Maybe
Can I just make a
ultimately.
comment? It would be possible to have it on the April ballot and fail on the April ballot. You could still talk about it at town meeting, and then you could consider putting it on the September or the November election. They're not necessarily contingent on each other.
Well, ultimately they are, because at some point, the item number 1, I call it the excluded debt, has to pass to have any discussion
It
on
has
number
to
2.
pass at both the ballot and the town meeting. But as we know from the Diamond vote that we took, we put it on the ballot and it failed. We voted at town meeting and it passed, and we put it on another ballot and it passed. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That you're
yeah.
correct that they have to pass at both places.
Yeah, yeah.
But even if the ballot failed, you could still bring it forward at town meeting.
Yes, okay.
And then back to the ballot.
You'd have to then go to a
You'd have
ballot
to go.
again.
Okay.
Okay, well, now that we're clear on that, and I thank you for that, I want to talk about the amount of money we're talking about, $35 million. At the January 24th meeting, we talked about doing the first part of the project. $8 million, I believe, would be the requirement. And there was sentiment, and I could see the logic for doing it all, but it's a challenge in my view. So I asked the question, a two-part question. One is, have we reconsidered this at all to go with the smaller piece, the first one, for the $8 million? And if not, why not? And then if this $35 million question fails, other than the timing thing, I mean, in terms of what would we do then as the next piece of that project? And then what would be the timelines on that?
I would say that is yet to be determined, but we have a quorum here of our committee, so they should speak.
So, the 35 million, Jimmy, so we got some grant money that we were planning to move forward with on this contract 1, right?
The only grant money we've received so far with contract 1 was the design, $380,000.
What about the Macumber Loop?
The Macumber Loop, we're in the running for some construction money. That would be specific to that. That'd be Osborne Street, Gifford Road, and extending the water line along Route 6.
Well, some of the reason why, one of the major reason why we're going for NOI on the whole trunk line is because when we go for the grants, we have to let them know what our intent is. If the 35 million, up to 35 million gets shot down in any of these places we're going, That doesn't stop the sewer project. It's approved, it's permitted, we have a notice of intent. And as we say, we chase the funds wherever we get them. I mean, again, we're going to town meeting to borrow up to 35 million so we can construct this, hopefully with whatever kind of grant money and betterments we have to build it. It gives us a way, like, we need to pay our contractors if we get the grant money. We have, the way the grants are coming in, this, we've had in Maury's article, this is a massive project. It's not a massive project. This trunk line will be done in one season. So that means the guy's gonna wanna get, whether we do one trunk, if we go and do one contract, and when it goes out to bid, they're gonna tell us, if you do one contract, it's gonna cost you this amount. You do 2 contracts, it's gonna cost you this amount. You do the whole thing at one time, it's gonna cost you this amount. That's why I'm trying to get this bid before town meeting, so we can explain to the taxpayers. Because if this gets shot down at the ballot, and this gets shot down at town meeting, that doesn't shoot the sewer down. The sewer's coming in. The environmental and economic and the environmental and justice neighborhoods, the sewer's happening. And it's not gonna take 30 years like it was projected. It's gonna happen quick. So whether it gets shot down or not, it's really not the issue right now. Hopefully it doesn't, and we can move forward efficiently and effectively and get it done.
Further questions from the committee?
So I think, I have several questions, but I just want to be clear. There's no way to pay for the sewer project unless we get this debt exclusion. Now, we're chasing grant money because we're trying to reduce, so my understanding, so please jump in, we believe it's a $31 million project. So we believe the information that we have before is $31 million. We are actively pursuing a number of grants.
Can I just
Go
put
ahead.
a little, just because it'll help you
Yeah.
along the way. So the notice of intent is the first thing that the feds look at when you're going for any kind of grant money. It's one of our problems.
I don't care about that. I care about the money. That's what I want to talk about right now.
Okay, so they're not going to give you the money without giving them the notice of intent.
Fine.
For the
I don't have any problem with the notice of intent. Go do whatever notice you want to do with the notice of intent. I don't care about that. I'm talking about the
That's
money.
what we paid for, so I want to know what that is.
Okay. So, but I'm talking about the $31 million, not the 300 that we spent, or whatever it was. So we believe the project is a $31 million project. So it became 35 because we were like, what ifing or whatever. So it said up to 35 because we could reduce the number, but you can't raise it, right?
That's right.
So my understanding is that we're pursuing a bunch of grants. We're pursuing special infrastructure money, but we don't know if we're going to get it or not. So you cannot construct this line. Maybe I need a notice of intent also, and I can't construct it without that. I cannot construct the line without money. So I think you're actually doing a disservice to your project by suggesting that you don't need this to pass. Because if it doesn't pass, you're going to have to be chasing these grants and this loan money until you get enough to like cobble along, right? So I worry a lot about hearing a member of both committees say it's going to happen even if you don't approve it, because I think it makes it sound like the voters can feel free to vote no and it'll still happen. So I wonder if you could maybe put a little color.
We need to convince the voters to vote yes.
I don't think we're going to convince them by
agree.
telling them they don't need to pass it.
Again, well, one thing, so Bob, when the Kleinfelder report came out, the integrated water plan, what year was that?
2018.
Okay, what was the
I'm sorry,
estimate-
2020.
What was the estimate for the sewer then?
It was in the upper 20s, I think. Now it's 31.
So,
But there's inflation, and we have a buffer in our request.
But you're absolutely right. If we don't have the money, we're not building it.
so also, Mass Highway has a plan on rebuilding the road.
Yes, all of this sort of, people get carried away sort of by the enthusiasm of the meeting and everything, and well, let's, because we can't, if we were successful, we can't go back to the town meeting and say, well, we asked for 8, but we really need 14 or something. We can't go in that direction. So we said, yeah, is it, this is a judgment call. Is it a tougher sell? Is 35 a tougher sell than 14 or 8? You say, well, maybe it is a more difficult sell, and maybe it isn't. But I think it's really this is all in a sort of, a lot of things have come together. Having COVID money, having the ARPA money to allow us to design this, all of these things have come together. And here we are at this point of can we ask the town voters to do a debt exclusion for a safe budget for everything that would put it in Route 6. And we've had a lot of pressure from the business community. Don't do just the first section. The businesses that really will be benefited are in the next contract. And the environmental benefits really come from having contracts 1 and 2, because we then reach into the Bread and Cheese Brook neighborhoods, and the effluent from their septic systems is the biggest load to the river. So as you start to say, well, do I do a half measure that doesn't have much significant benefits, or do we make an argument for doing the project as it should? So that's where we landed. But we need, and just out of the fact that Dick, just out of the fact that we have an election coming, and we need the debt exclusion vote. So it's sort of that's the reason that drove putting it on the warrant, to test it there. And Shauna, I think it's correct that even if it failed there, I think we should keep it on the warrant to see if the town, and in the larger town vote, would approve it. So, it gives the voters an opportunity to decide on the project, and that's really what we're asking tonight.
I have one more
Go ahead.
question. So I had another question related to the finances. So I think that I'm in support of this project. I'm in support of funding. I just want to be very clear. I'm in support of funding the entire contract, moving forward as fast as we can, continuing to seek grants and all of the offsetting money that we can say. So I say that I support this project. One of the things I'm hearing from my constituents is that why should the whole town have to pay for it when only a certain number of people are actually going to get the benefit of it? And I think you touched on that, but I think you're going to have to talk about it more. But more importantly, we kind of just talk about it like we assume there's an economic impact from an economic development perspective. But it seems like almost like we say it's intuitively obvious that it'll be an economic benefit to have this stretch watered and sewered. But I haven't seen any numbers around that to kind of show. So if you're talking to like the finance committee, they're going to talk about it's going to cost the taxpayers X amount, but where's the, I think we kind of intuitively know you'll have offsetting revenue because you'll have commercial businesses in there, but how do we get our heads around, or what work have you already done on the committee to kind of get your heads around the positive economic impacts that might be, from a town perspective, benefit from, to kind of offset that cost?
So the
Maury, can I-
only
can I
hard
answer that?
number.
Can I answer that?
Well,
Okay.
order in the court here.
I don't
She
care.
suggested a question to Mr.
Okay, so the only really hard number we have comes from Serpid's 2018 report, and that is in the Contract 1 area, which is from Fall River to Route 88. They came up with a number of about $420,000 of economic, of tax benefits from the economic development from sewer in that Contract 1 area. That was 2018. We've had a lot of inflation since then. Call that number 500 or 600,000. But I do know personally of quite a few projects that would move forward with sewer.
So
that's the hardest
to
number.
answer your constituents that are questioning you. So the major for the whole town on this would be the environmental impact on caption. How many septic systems do we have in that area?
It's about 3,000.
3,000 septic.
And cesspools.
That's
Worse.
That's the total nitrogen load, 0 for those. So that saves everybody else in town from on doing, the septic upgrade. We also become compliant. So when the DEP was coming after everybody, making them replace all their septics. When the technology, we're getting below that. It's the only thing to fix those problems. And that's the benefit for the whole town.
That's a good point, thank you.
And also, you know, I think one of the joys of serving on the boards and commissions is seeing the opportunity for the town boards to work together. So the planning board and Dick, you'll see in the warrant, the planning board has a number of rezoning articles that sit in the first contract phase. So once the town, you know, what we're trying to do is if, working with the Board of Selectmen, if we get this before the people and we raise the money and build the sewer, can we harvest the investment that the town makes? And what we're doing is we're changing the zoning in a way that increases the zoning, increases the density, increases the ease and the attractiveness of the private sector making an investment. And and there'll be a lag. That is, we have to raise the money, we have to build the water and sewer, we have to get that in the ground. When people see that's real and they see the zoning is in place to really foster, you know, economic development, will people act once the water and sewer is actually there? And we've seen it time and time again. As a matter of fact, some of the grants we've chased, we get denied because people really aren't ready to move forward. So you have to build the belief that we can do it, then we have to do it, and then now you put something in place.
And another factor, if I could, Mr. Chair, the housing factor. We already have a developer there that wants to expand the housing that's already there. Right now, if you try to plan to do something like in the start, it couldn't happen because a portion of your development's going to be used for septic and whatnot, and there's wetlands issues too. But now you don't have to plan for that section anymore being for septic. So it helps us across the board. Number one, a company doesn't want to put a lot of planning and effort into a property that doesn't have infrastructure. You're increasing the broadband, we're putting in the infrastructure that we need. You know, the possibilities are endless. We're also within the impact area of the rail, so we were going to be forced to put some housing. This now helps it, where it's less of an impact to the neighborhood, less eyesores. You can put more on a lot, and like Bob says, with the planning board zoning, that's going to help us too. We could have mixed, so it actually could be a walking little gateway right in the first contract area. So you know, the possibilities are pretty much endless.
So you could, you know, simply said, is this guaranteed to happen if we put the water and sewer in? No, but it's guaranteed not to happen if we don't do it.
At our tax rate, it's very.
If you would like to see the new tax revenues to offset the constant struggle we have with providing the town enough revenues to operate, if we don't do it, we're guaranteed not to see that money.
I think we could all agree on
Can I
that.
ask Bob a question on that?
Sarah, would you have a question?
I'm done.
Okay.
So Bob, if we don't do it, those 3,000 septics, so like you take the Macomber Loop, how many houses are in the Macomber Loop? The whole neighborhood, to Sylvia?
I don't know for certain, but there's a couple of hundred in there.
Okay, so a couple of hundred houses in there. So just like the Macomber, those houses were all built prior to '95. The ones that have been sold and banks were involved, they've been upgraded to Title V, but the percentage is probably 10–15%. So what will happen to those as they're sold, they'll all have to be septic upgrades. So if you got, like, because we're gonna talk later too about the adding all the design in that, and what the cost of design is at. Each of those individual people, it's already happened. They're paying $4,500 for the septic design in that neighborhood. So 200 of them are gonna pay $4,500. So that's what their design's gonna cost. Has nothing to do with water. And we gotta make sure on this, the whole idea is we wanna bring clean drinking water. That neighborhood has problems across the board. Dry wells, drinking water problems, right across the board. Another thing is these homes, you know, they're not on a affordable housing list, but it is our seniors. Our seniors are living in these homes, and they're our first-time home buyers coming back and buying them after. What I'm seeing now with the septic being forced on them, they're selling them. Now you're creating the cost, 40 to 50,000. If they try to do new construction in there, you're at those lots, the new construction lots are going up to 200,000, 240,000. Now you're adding a $50,000 septic to it. By the time they get out of the ground, they're almost 300,000. First-time home buyers aren't paying 700,000, 800,000 for those houses. So I don't know if we can look into something like that in assistance to these seniors when they're tying into the sewer. Can we get an affordable? Can we work with different agencies and start using them as some of our affordable housing and try to move in that direction?
Okay, I promised Mr. Michaud that he would speak, but could you let Mr.
No, I'd like to speak.
Yeah, he would like to speak. He was at the microphone before, David, and I asked him to hold off a second.
I want to speak on the subject that I think you're currently discussing.
Well, that's what Mr. Michaud is, I believe, interested in doing.
He just deferred to
I'd be
David.
happy to be second.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. Sure. I'd like to touch base a little bit on the financing of it. First off, some of the money used for engineering, that money's probably what they call Build Back Better money. And so that money's got to be paid back yet, you know. We do hold a debt in this country. It's growing every day. Anyway, to move on to another point. We put in 2 applications. They were both denied. Correct?
Who is that question addressed?
We have filed for a MassWorks grant twice and failed twice, and we have applied for a state revolving fund loan and have been waitlisted for 2024, which means we've been denied.
Gotcha, okay, yeah. And what is the reason for the denial?
They have scoring systems on both. They're complicated, and we didn't score. We didn't have enough points to meet the funding threshold.
When I hear like a score, it almost comes to me like not enough points of interest. Would that be you know equitable to say, sort of?
Maury, do you have an answer, or Bob?
We are concerned about this, and we are going to become more proactive. I will say I brought it to the attention of our state representative, who has brought it to the attention of our state senator, and they are both very concerned. Don't forget that our state senator did get a special $1 million earmark to, spark plug this whole project. So we are meeting with them on Friday in the offices of our town administrator.
Gotcha. And my next question would be, is the application being prepared for the next, the next asking of money?
Well, MassWorks is due June 1st, so it's very much on our agenda.
Because
as far as the state revolving fund, we do hope that we can get, we're waitlisted, we hope we can move up on the wait list and perhaps get approved. Because the difference between the state revolving fund, it's 2% money for 20 years. And if we have to go to the public municipal bond market, it's going to be 3.5, 3 3/4, which is almost double what the state revolving fund is. So I was hopeful with the state revolving fund. There's a new injection, from the Biden's infrastructure bill into the DEP, who funds the revolving fund for the next 5 years. And so hopefully there'll be plenty of money for us to get if we do file the application properly.
I'd like to see the application go in before a town meeting, and I'd like to see the application go in, and this way they have enough time to go through the application and come up with a determination. Because there's another thing that plays factor in the project is the state's gonna go in, they're gonna put a brand new Route 6 up there. At that point there, they're gonna need storm drains, so they'll be addressing that fact, But I think they should have the opportunity to get this all done at once. And I think if we put, and it'll, like the woman said here, she's absolutely right. Who would want to pay for something they're not receiving? So that made perfect sense to me. And then it brings me back to the finances.
Yeah.
I think the application for the $35 million should be prepared and submitted as soon as possible. Like you say, let the build back money make the decision on what we're gonna receive, what we're not gonna receive. As of now, it looks like, like I was reading one of the infrastructure papers there, it had stated that the funding was complete for phase 1. But in reality, that's not true. The funding is, no, okay, good. Because what we ought to do is shoot for the stars and take what they give us. We broke the project down in phases. At that point there, the money will tell us how far we're really gonna go, be able to go with this thing. At least give them the opportunity. And as far as development goes, it's like a baseball field. You build it. Will the kids come and play? I believe so. Yeah, absolutely. And so the town boards, a lot of time, Build Back Better money is already in this project. I say give it the green light. You're working on a time frame. Who's controlling the state as far as the renewal of the new Route 6? Because my intention was they plan on starting the fall of '24. It's not a resurface, it's a new road going in. So they plan on starting it up in the fall of '24. So if they're being held off, that's one thing. So that brings us down to a time frame. Even if you wanted to do phase 1, they go ahead and put that new Route 6 down. You can't touch it for 7 years after that.
Wait, this is not supposed to be a debate.
Okay, no, I just wanted to answer the question.
Well, the
Mr.
questions
Chairman.
have to go through me.
Okay. May I answer the question?
If you'd hold on.
Through you.
Well, I do have to move this along, and others wish to
Gotcha.
speak.
Okay.
Have you
Understood.
largely made your points? Mr.
Yeah,
Bishop?
thank you, sir.
And well spoken, thank you. Now, Mr. Mayor, if you would just respond to any of that, please speak.
Yeah, the gentleman at Mass DOT that permits Route 6 in Westport is Sean Paraso. He's a Westporter. He worked in the highway department. He knows this town and its highways a lot better than I do. And he's very aware of our contracts, and he's already approved the permit for the contract 1 segment. And in my conversations with him, the idea of the 7-year, the reconstruction and the 7-year prohibition did not come up. So I don't think it's that close.
Okay. David wishes to speak.
Okay, I'm
Well, this is,
David Cole from,
let David speak, we can catch on that one later.
pardon me?
I was just trying to clarify who's speaking here. Okay. Manny has a follow-up question for Maury. If you could do that, if you could just hold off, David.
So Sean's an inspector. He's not in permitting. He's just looking at what your idea is. So one of the other things that Mass Highway has is, and, we have Corinne here from Buzzards Bay. I mean, they have environmental, they haven't done any stormwater work. They've surveyed the Brent Cheese Brook. They have plans to do their upgrades that they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna start happening. The thing about sewer, and our trunk line over there, the sewer needs to go in first. That's number 1. And then drainage, water, all of that has to be, the design has to be complete, the sewer has to go in first. They already know, when they're looking at that plan that Kleinfeld set, they've been working on their drainage out there for a long time.
Oh,
This
yeah.
stuff's all in the works. So all of this has to mesh together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I feel that it's critical that we submit our whole plan. And if we gotta build it in one contract, we build it in one contract. We try to get the money. That's all I meant by if it gets shut down. This needs to move forward to get it completed.
Okay, David, finally. You were very patient, I thank you.
That's all right, I've got a seat back there. I think it's very important how you phrase this, how you present this. And it's not going to be one big decision, it's going to be a series of decisions that's going to play out over a period of time. And I think this initial vote that we're talking about on the ballot is an opportunity for the town to indicate whether it's prepared to make a commitment to taking this project seriously. And don't worry too much about the amount of money that's authorized or exactly how it's going to be spent, but are we serious about doing it, and are we willing to commit to go ahead with it and figure out how best to do it? And I think that's the first decision that you can pose to the people at this time. Then I think you can move on from there as to whether you're going to do it in phases and what sort of money you're going to get and how you're going to spread the thing out. I think there are a couple of important elements of this that need to be seriously considered. certainly one of them is the betterment policy. And 10 years ago or more, I went to a meeting in Falmouth where they were deciding on their betterment policy for the new Silver Beach water and sewer system. And I went there expecting there'd be blood on the walls as a result of that discussion. But they had come up with a betterment policy that everybody agreed to, and at the end of the meeting, they'd voted in favor of it, and everybody was smiling and congratulating each other. So try to find a happy betterment policy and work that out, and so it's understood beforehand. And I would just add a third element that I came to the select board and discussed back last fall, and that is, if you're going to be adding things on to the property tax going forward to pay a share of the cost of this project and others, you ought to do something to make the property tax more progressive and not just a flat tax. And that can be done very easily through the adoption of a
Classification.
what is,
Classification.
no, not classification. It's
Exemption.
I've written too damn many papers about it, I can't remember.
I think you mean a
But-
residential exemption.
Residential exemption, thank you. And I think that if you would adopt, and the select board can adopt, a residential exemption of $100,000 going forward, that will greatly alleviate the burden of any increased property taxes for the very low-value properties and will help you get the votes you needed to do it. So I'd say shoot for an overall approval, get a good betterment policy, and get this residential exemption, a three-legged stool that I think you can fly on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Appreciate it. Ms. Ryden?
Hi, Tanya Ryden. I just have a clarification question, because you mentioned the funding that you're looking for, the trunk line. Is it correct that it's going to serve 3,000? I think that was the figure, households. I thought that the trunk line is just Route 6.
That is correct. The number of houses, I may have answered a different question.
Okay.
I thought the question was how many households are in the North Sewer District, and that's about 3,000. There are many fewer homes. I wouldn't want to say a number right off, but I think for people who will be directly served out of the trunk line, I don't remember if there's.
It's about 165 or so.
No,
I mean,
think
that's-
there's more.
That's commercial
There's
and,
300 properties. or something
So
like that,
could you-
350.
Clarify the 3,000 sewer district. What that's the whole north end? Or
No,
what-
it's a sewer, it's going back, the original North Sewer District, which is essentially from the interstate down to 177, roughly, that's what that is.
Okay, but this trunk line will not serve.
Can I answer that question, please?
Let her finish asking the question.
Thank you. This trunk line will not serve those 3,000 households. There needs to be additional infrastructure beyond this.
That's
Okay, I just
Can I answer that
I
question?
just wanted clarification.
So
Thank
the
you.
trunk line,
Please,
the
Mel.
trunk line was designed to accommodate all of those houses. So if you want to look at what one of our residents did, bringing the pump station into their restaurant and the hotels, that's why we are redoing that section, because this whole trunk line is designed, and the city of Fall River has the capacity to take those 3,000 houses. And that's why we're moving forward with this. We're calling it the backbone.
That's correct. What's the capacity that's being built in the pipeline will serve, is designed for the whole system. But the trunk line itself serves essentially the Route 6
Mhm.
immediate corridor.
I think that's clear. Next speaker? You can-
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Corin Peterson from the Buzzards Bay Coalition. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just, on behalf of the coalition's members here in Westport, we are going to urge the select board to place both of the article on the town warrant in May and the ballot question in April. This is a unique opportunity for the town to take an important first step in meeting several needs, including both economic needs and environmental needs of the town. Municipal sewer is by far the best way you can treat for many pollutants that are now currently in our discharged from our septic systems into groundwater. You can't ask for a better solution for the Westport rivers than the expansion of sewer along Route 6. Like I said, it's an important first step to get it done. A couple of comments that have been raised tonight that I will just offer the board some perspective. $35 million sounds like a really big number, especially for an infrastructure project, sewer infrastructure project that the town has not undertaken before. But I would encourage you to break that down. And what does that mean per home? After you receive 2% SRF funding from the state, what does that look like after you apply the betterment cost? Perhaps you get a grant. Per home, on a weekly basis over 20 years, we're talking $5 to $10 per home over 20 years per week. That's, whether you buy a cup of coffee in Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, that's what we're looking for. So just, in terms of how we speak to our constituents and how the coalition's going to speak to our members, there's a huge benefit town-wide to this project from an environmental and economic perspective. And so when we can all pitch in a little bit to avail ourselves of that benefit, I think that's how we should speak to it. So thank you, and I urge you to urge the support of the two articles.
Thank you for your comments. Please.
Mr. Chair, my name's John Bullard. I'm on the planning board. I'm on the board of the Buzzards Bay Coalition. I live in the South End, and I applaud the way you are discussing this, and I just want to underline a couple of points that you've already made, so I'll try and be brief. One, Manny asked a question about this being part of or in reference to the integrated water management. And I think it's important to recognize this. And when I say I live in the South End, it is to drive home the point that he made about the integrated water management plan. Because I think while this is a project in the North End, there is a benefit to me that justifies why I should pay higher taxes. And it is a benefit, as Corin said, that has environmental aspects, and it also has economic aspects, because I firmly believe that with water and sewer, the commercial areas of Route 6 are going to be much more attractive and are going to see economic development at precisely where we want to see it in Westport. So this is part of the integrated water management plan that is going to drive economic development where we want to see it, and is going to have, as Manny said, tremendous environmental benefit for the whole river system, which benefits people all over Westport. So I should pay for that because I will be a beneficiary of that. I think the way you have structured how it should be paid for is fair. I think the betterment proposal that Bob Daler laid out that says, well, people who get the benefit of water and sewer should pay a betterment. And if you take the average betterment cost found around the Commonwealth of $20,000, well, that would make sense, except this is one of the poorest parts of Westport, so it doesn't make sense. So let's cut that in half. I think that is a very reasonable way of thinking. And as you continue to deliberate, you may go back and forth on that, but I think the way he lays that out makes sense. And the three-legged stool of something for betterment, recognizing what part of town this is. A second leg of all of us benefit, so all of us should pay something. And then the third leg being all of the grants from different levels of government. The second point I want to make is that in a former life, I was mayor of New Bedford, and I had a very costly education dealing with sewer problems in that community, costly in money, costly in political pain. One of the lessons I learned is that you don't solve sewer problems without money. They are costly to solve. And one of the lessons I learned from this graduate degree in sewage is that a good question to ask in dealing with this problem is that, is this problem getting better or worse on its own? If we do nothing, is it getting better or worse on its own? Because the reason that's a good question to ask, because if it's getting better on its own, then time's on your side. You can take all the time you want debating and doing studies. If it's getting worse, then time isn't on your side. And whether it's inflation or anything else, time isn't on your side if the problem's getting worse. And I think probably everyone here would agree that things are getting worse in this issue. So time isn't on our side. And as we've talked about, as Manny and others have talked about, costs will probably be lower if we had a big pot of money. You'd bid this all at once because we'd get a lower cost. Ultimately, we would save ratepayers money if we could do all this. Ultimately, it would make a lot more sense to do it all at once so the state could go and pave Route 6, after the water and sewer got put in and not before water and sewer. So there are all kinds of reasons. And the other one is, and I think David Cole used the word opportunity, which I think is a great word in how we communicate this, because this is an opportunity in terms of the grants. We haven't always had, the Senate Ways and Means Chair representing the town of Westport. And so there is opportunities here. There's been ARPA funding, and it's not all spent. There are a certain alignment of stars that may make that third leg of the funding cycle of where do we get grants a little easier now. That might not be the case a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, but those stars are aligned now. And so it might make that a little, it's not going to be easy. Believe me, it's not going to be easy, but it might make it a little easier. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Chair, I move that we place the debt exclusion on the April town ballot and the May town meeting warrant.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion, starting first with Board of Selectmen, Select Board members. Feel free to speak.
Yeah, again, I think the only thing that we really need to do is get the education going.
Mm.
I mean, we get it on the menu, and we educate the people that are gonna be serviced in that area that really can't afford it on what's happening. And I think we'll be successful.
Other comments? My comment is, when I went to the January 24th meeting, I was skeptical and probably would have preferred the $8 million version for the Phase 1, but there is logic here that I think is fairly easy to explain, but there are a lot of parts to this, so it's going to take some explaining, as many of our speakers have indicated. But I support it. At the end of the day, it's up to the voters as to what they want to do here. We're giving them the opportunity. That's the good thing about these measures. Whether people like it or not, fine, but that's their decision. So then we'll get some direction on this, and so I give it also my support. Any other comments from the Board of Selectmen? Or Jim?
I just say the actual wording will have to be approved at the next meeting of the Board of Selectmen for the questions.
Yes. Gentlemen, do you have any other comments? Are any other public comments? Come to the microphone again.
I'd just like to say thank you, everybody, for working on this. It's a pretty important project. I definitely support it all the way. And I would just say, put the application in as fast as possible to find out how much money we can actually get. Thank you.
Good point, thank you. Okay, motion made and seconded. So I believe it's time to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I see none opposed. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. for your
Okay,
We have to adjourn.
Yeah, I'm just gonna run it by the chair first. We're all set on the betterment, we're gonna wait for the next meeting of IOF, right? The infrastructure committee. You don't have any, we can adjourn our meeting?
Well, we still need to talk a little bit about number 2. I think we've covered most of it anyway.
Yeah, there's more.
We moved the ballot and the town meeting
Oh, I'm
warrant.
sorry, I missed that. All right, then we don't have to discuss that.
Okay, so we're good on our meeting? I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the IOC meeting.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a new member back there.
He not sworn in yet?
Yeah,
You did, oh, he's not sworn in yet?
Yeah, that's all right.
Oh, right.
he is appointed but not sworn in.
You're right. Good point.
He's up to date, though, he's got no
Thank you for the
excuses.
time.
Thank you,
I
thank you for being here.
didn't think it
Appreciate
would
it.
go this long.
He's incognito back there.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to that betterment
All right.
policy. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, that was a very good discussion on a very important item. I thank all of you, and I thank everybody for their patience. I'll try to move along as quickly as possible. Item K is request to approve Kleinfelder change order to design sewer for the Osborne Street, Gifford Road loop, and approve the funding source. And it's to the tune of $126,000. Jim?
This was a request, member Solis had requested this be put on the agenda, this one and the following item.
And could you tell us the importance of this and the timelines on this?
So this would be, we've applied for a grant, and we've gotten some favorable responses back on the grant. We certainly don't have the money yet, but the questions they've asked and the indications seem like we have a good chance to get this grant for water. The grant would be to install water line from our existing water line on Route 6 near the Housing Authority property, extended down Route 6 towards Dartmouth to, I think it's Railroad Ave or Washington Street, and then also extended down Osborne Street to the Macumber School, and then northerly along Gifford Road back into Route 6.
The design is the key word here.
The board has approved design for the water line work. The request here, I think, is to approve, or to consider approval of design for the sewer work in the same loop, which would be Osborne Street and Gifford Road. And it would just be those 2 streets. I did get a price, and they'd given us a rough estimate for that neighborhood, and that was, I think, over $400,000, but that came in after the agenda, so it's not on tonight's agenda. So I think the request is for $126,000 to design the sewer along Osborne and Gifford Road only.
Thank you. And what is your thinking of the
Okay,
committee?
so one of the reasons on this is, and I haven't seen the design, but sitting in that meeting with Kleinfeld, so the sewer coming in that way is gonna be gravity. It's gonna be deep. It's gonna be in the middle of the road. The water main, when the water main comes in that direction, it's gonna be on the side of the road, it's gonna be crossing over the sewer. So that's why they need to be working together running the water main in, to loop it in across that way. I mean, when you applied for the grant, did you give them a design for the grant?
We didn't need the design.
Okay. Okay, so why didn't we apply for that grant last year?
It only became available this year. It was a new grant from Mass DEP. They sent out a survey to Westport, and we put in a request for
That didn't
it.
come out in January of 2023.
What's that?
That didn't come out in January of 2023.
I don't think so. I think it came out after, but, you know, the
Right.
the planning department, Michael Bevis over there, put in an application along with Roger Fernandez, and it looks like they may accept it. This would be
Well,
A big win for the town. This would
We
be
missed
about
it, we missed it last year. But,
Yeah, I'm not sure there was one last year. There may have been, I'm not aware of it.
Well, whether we missed it or not, is it relevant to this motion here?
No.
no, I'm just, one of my reasons is because I also had asked at the next meeting to add the whole neighborhood. That's the 200 houses that we're gonna capture. I'm not too concerned about the other lots, because I believe that other design's gonna come back and say that those are gonna be fed with a low-pressure system that's gonna be E1 pumps pumping up towards the gravity in Route 6. So it could happen in another phase. But that sewer in the Osborne Street area needs to be included in that grant money and see what happens. If they say, hey, we're not gonna give you that much, we're not gonna give you, but it needs to go into that application.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I thought we did talk about this at the ARPA meeting, and we agreed that we should go forward. This is the Macomer Loop, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
That was for the water design only.
So we talked about the contract for the water design. So this, and we agreed that that made sense to use the ARPA money for that. So this is, while we're doing the water, let's do the sewer at the same time. So this is doing the sewer at the same time that we're talking about adding it.
They're doing the survey work for it. So again, it's like, why do we don't, and Jim did ask if there was a timeline on the design. So it's not. We're mobilizing the survey crew out there. We're doing the design team. You get it done, the design won't go bad. Because as we know, the trunk line is designed to accommodate all these neighborhoods. So our first contract coming off the tire, we need to lay out the groundwork because it needs to be built. I haven't seen the design, but talking to Kleinfeld and seeing the emails coming back, Osborne Street and coming off of Gifford Road, it's gonna be gravity. It means it's gonna be deeper than the water. That means all of those little houses gotta cross over it with the water main. So we gotta at least throw it in there. Because if we put the water main, if they only give us a grant for the water main, and how much money are they talking about that? What's the estimate?
We're about $3.7 million.
Okay, and what's Kleinfeld say, what was their estimate on doing the whole neighborhood?
The whole neighborhood?
Yeah.
I couldn't even give you an estimate.
Well, no, I think they did reply and it was around 6 million. So, I mean, I'd like to say, if we could submit the whole design for the neighborhood in, and they say, okay, we're only gonna give you 3 million, then the stuff that's low pressure, we don't worry about it, we come in on another funding source to try to do it, and we get that main loop in.
Go ahead.
So I understand the request is to design the sewer. So while the people that are designing the water, to tack on sewer and do it at the same time. I understand that. So since you requested this, what are you requesting as the funding source?
The grant they applied for.
No, we can't, this is asking for us to approve a design with a funding source. We can't approve it, this is asking us to spend $126,000
For design.
for design, prior to getting this $3.5 million grant.
Well, last year in.
I'm asking, what's the funding source for the $126,000 are you
ARPA
proposing?
money.
Okay, so you're proposing the ARPA money
Yes.
for that, okay, thank you. And I thought we did discuss both water and sewer at the ARPA meeting.
The
But we,
last ARPA meeting, I think we did because we requested,
Yeah.
Mr. Soers requested that we get quotes from.
okay,
Kleinfeld.
so we did talk about it and agreed in theory, and Dick, you can help me remember. So we agreed in theory that was the approach, but we didn't have the number. So this is you went out now and got the number, 126,000. So just one more question. Can you just remind us how much money is available in the Bristol County ARPA money?
We got about $1.4 million.
Okay, thank you.
What was the 420? You just said something came in at 420.
The whole
420 would be to design that neighborhood for sewer and water.
So this 126 and 22 is part of that 420?
No, the
Can you- is this-
420 would be an addition.
This diagram, is the red the 126
The
and the
red is
blue is the whole neighborhood, or is that
The blue
something
would be
else?
the additional 400,000.
The blue
red
is
the
400.
126.
So the 126 is the red, which is the loop, and then what Manny's talking about here is the blue, which are the little lines going off the
And
loop.
then the 22 is just Route 6, not the loop?
The
Yeah, and then what is the 22 on the second one?
22,000 would be for the bidding of,
The bidding to do it, so it's different.
from Route 88 to Dartmouth.
But we're not asking for the 460 from ARPA for the whole design of the neighborhood, because we didn't speak about it? Is that why we're not
I didn't
asking?
get the estimate until Friday.
Okay, so does that mean we can't talk about it because we talked about that? I mean, because another thing is that neighborhood, so the individual septics out of those 200 houses, their cost for design, for what's already happened in the neighborhood, their cost for design would be $840,000 for a septic system. So the Macumber is also, the school for the Macumber is also, was, I think, built in the 60s, Title V changed, so that's not Title V compliant as 90% of the houses in that neighborhood. So I think that's why it's kind of important to get that design, whether we build it, but they only have 2 years, I mean, you know, to upgrade, so. I mean, the letters that went out from the Board of Health are only the ones they know about, but that neighborhood, when it was built, and that's where most of those people live now, that's what their cost is.
Well, does this, Jim, I'll throw the question to you, does this item fit the bill? I mean, does this work? It works only if we get ARPA money, but I think there's a good bet on that in terms of the county ARPA money. This is clearly what ARPA was designed for.
The 126 or the whole 500?
I'm just looking at the 126 at the moment.
The 126, yeah, would qualify for
Yeah.
ARPA funds.
Well, that's what's in front of us, you know.
Yeah, but we asked this in the ARPA meeting to design the whole neighborhood, I just wondering why it's not in front of us now. So we're gonna just say we're not
Because I
gonna,
didn't have a price. I
You
didn't have a
didn't
price
a
until
number.
after the
So
agenda.
would you
came out.
So
prefer
we're
that
gonna-
we
are we
defer
gonna
making
come
this
back?
decision?
If you want to come back, we can put it on for the next agenda.
I think that would be,
Pass on this tonight?
This is separate. This is 126 just for Osborne Street and Gifford Road.
Yeah.
The 400 would be for the other streets in that neighborhood.
So we can still act on this
If you want,
and
yes.
then proceed with the other discussion.
but is that gonna pull the trigger on Kleinfeld to start just part of it? So that, I mean, I think you've hired a survey crew to go out there and start surveying. I mean, to Osborne Street, they're gonna be done in one day. I mean, why don't we just do the whole neighborhood?
Because what's before us right now is,
Okay.
do we
I
do this
just-
126,000 or not? If you want to do the whole neighborhood, that's a second conversation.
I would make a motion to approve this, but to not move forward until we can come before the next meeting, so we can just do it all at once. See if we can get it done all at once.
They've already started, or they're supposed to be starting the survey work for this for the water line, so we don't want to hold them off on that. But that really doesn't impact the designs. I don't think the survey work holds off the design stuff. We really need to get that survey stuff done.
Well, like I said, and some of the email I saw from Alex today,
Mhm.
for some of the stuff on Route 6, he brings out these points, that it's different installing the water versus the sewer. You know, so it's kind of important.
But we don't have money for both. We may have money for
Well,
one, we
you
don't
may,
have money for both.
you only put the grant, you only asked for it without a design. You didn't throw it in there with the whole
And we
thing.
got quite a bit, and we did go back to them last week, and we asked them if we could bump it up to 3.9 to cover the whole, and they said basically, be happy with what you've got, because you're getting more than any other community in the state.
Okay, we understand that, but when I'm hearing from the other end, so if you have the whole design, and they're gonna give us what they get, we get, again,
And
the
the
trunk
sewer,
line.
this is a water grant, it's not a sewer
Okay,
grant.
that's.
But
I dis-
anyway,
I
we can
disagree-
ask. I
I
don't
disagree
mind
with the funding, but that's fine. Okay.
All right, so we can work on this singular item tonight, and without doing damage to the further discussion on the whole neighborhood.
Are we
Next
sure
week.
ARPA, that we've got the ARPA money? Are you sure?
We do,
have the ARPA
we
money?
do. I don't know, we looked, the ARPA committee, we have to have committed projects to get the Bristol, we have to commit them very quickly, actually, to get the Bristol County money, because whatever the deadline is, we have to be under contract pretty quickly. So we did talk about contracts that we could execute and be on pretty quickly, and the Kleinfelder work was one of them, because they've already kind of started, it's already in flight. That's why it made a lot of, it's inconsistent with extending the water and sewer line. We were still trying to reserve the money for the Route 6 project though, because we were, the reason that we have $1.4 million in the Bristol County ARPA money is because we were reserving that for Route 6. So the concern now is that we don't believe we can get Route 6 projects under contract quick enough to qualify for the Bristol County money. So then we started looking at what other things could we qualify and get on the books quick enough. So I thought that the ARPA team actually agreed in principle without the exact dollar figure to this 126 and the 22. So I thought we had already agreed to that and supported it. We just didn't know the number. I don't think we can approve in excess of that because it wasn't posted on this agenda. So I actually think I would move that we proceed with this $126,000 sewer design funded from the Bristol County ARPA money, so that way we can get moving on it.
Lock it in.
I'm also in favor of revisiting the other proposal, but the way your motion was linked to them together, I would prefer to have them separated and separate events. So my motion is to approve this $126,000 with the source being Bristol County ARPA, and then we can talk about the other one another time.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Now, any further discussion on this? We're going to bifurcate the two. This is what we're doing tonight.
This is just
In 2 weeks, we'll talk about the rest of the project. Okay, understood. Time to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is a little smaller in dollars, but L is the request to approve Kleinfelder change order to providing bidding services for Route 6 sewer and water and approve the funding source, $22,000. Jim, what is that funding source again? Would that be also ARPA money?
So it would have to be ARPA money, yes.
County ARPA money?
We could put in for county ARPA money.
Okay, that's the question.
And is this related to that first contract, or is this something different?
So this is related to the overall Route 6. So we have paid for the Route 6 to be designed. This would allow them to put it out to bid, to review the bid qualifications, to review the specs, to review the submittals, have a public meeting with them.
So I move approval of this change order for $22,000 to be funded from Bristol County ARPA.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion on the motion?
I mean, that, so that 22,000, that wouldn't be on the earmark money for the Route 6? Don't we have some of that left?
We could take it out of that earmark if you want as well.
I mean, if we could save
We're gonna
Bristol
lock in
County
on
for the
the-
design.
We have to use the ARPA money.
Yeah, well, we're looking, we have another need for that ARPA money and the whole design for that neighborhood. I mean, if we use the 22,000 out of what's in the Bristol County, I mean, on the earmark, and keep this for when we come back in 2 weeks to add to.
How much money is left on the earmark?
So originally, I think the ARPA group was looking at putting aside $1 million for the Route 6.
Yeah.
And I think we spent 163 for the design of the water along Osborne and Gifford Road. So $1 million minus the 163 minus the 126, $300,000.
But he's talking about using the earmark money. That was separate money from the Bristol County.
So we got about $350,000.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying why this 22,000, this isn't for
So
the
the reason that I don't want to use the earmark money is because we have a deadline on the Bristol County
Yeah.
one and we don't on the other one.
Okay, no, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
let's just go that way. Okay, so that motion was made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The motion carries. Paul, thank you. Item M. Okay, that concludes with that discussion, all of the Route 6 and so on and so forth. The next item is still under the action items, and it's one that's important to us. We have a deadline to meet, so I'll read it. To review the fiscal year 2025 town budget and refer to the Finance Committee. We do have a bylaw that mentions when we have to have that submitted to the Finance Committee. We are on time, but I think it's got to be by February, I'm going to say it's February 20th. Jim can correct me on that, I have it here somewhere, but we're well on time. But we have to do it tonight so we can meet that deadline. So, if you're all set up, then I'll let you kick it off. Give us the background on this, and off we go.
So we submitted a few documents that are in your packet. We have the 5-year financial plan, the 5-year capital improvement plan, and then there's also a proposed budget for fiscal year '25. It goes over a lot of the information that we presented at previous meetings. The town has a structural deficit and continues to have a structural deficit where our expenses, our yearly increase in expenses are exceeding our increases in new revenue each year. On page 2 of that document, there's a chart that shows the yearly expended revenue. The last couple of years, we've had a boost in new revenue for the town of Westport, mainly because of Chapter 70 numbers coming in from the state, and also we've had less students leaving the district for school choice and charter school.
Before you go further, is this?
It's just
You don't-
not
This
there.
is I was going to ask if this is going to be up on the screen.
This is not up on the screen now, but I do have a couple of slides we will go over. So the new revenue for this year currently is about $2.2 million. We split that that gets divided between the schools and the town at 54%, 46%. That's been customary over the years. The school would get $1.1 million, and the town would get about $975,000. The report also gets into the free cash and the difficulties with using free cash each year because it's one-time funds. It does not come out of the operating budget, and it delays the problem to the following year, and it increases the problem in the following year. I'm just going to go through what I have here for the few slides. We only have a few. Just some general updates. Free cash has been certified at $2.3 million. The governor's budget has been presented. This is the first step in the budget process. It'll now go to the House Committee and the House and the Senate, and then they will combine in conference and come up with a final bill. The Chapter 70 funds in the governor's budget increased over the preliminary estimates. So the preliminary estimates that I showed the board back in December, the actual numbers when they came in from the state were $240,000 higher. We also, I will say that even with that $240,000, it's $211,000 less than what we received last year in Chapter 70 funding. Health insurance estimates, we're still waiting for those numbers, but we've been told that we should expect increases of 7 to 10%. That's health insurance and property insurance. School choice and charter school, this is what I just mentioned, the school choice. And these are assessments. This is what the state assesses the town. The school choice assessment decreased by $30,000 in the governor's budget, and the charter school decreased by $165,000. 185 was below my estimates. School choice was reduced by $20,000 from fiscal year '24, or $30,000 from the preliminary estimates. So with the Chapter 70 and the school choice charter school, we picked up roughly about $500,000. As far as unknowns, we're still waiting. You know, this is just the governor's budget. It does change over the course of the process. We won't get the final numbers until June or July, but usually just before town meeting, we get the Senate numbers, and that's usually pretty close to the final numbers. We're still waiting for regional school assessments, the Diamond assessment and Bristol Aggie assessment. I've had conversations with the business manager at Diamond, and I think we're pretty close on what has been budgeted in the budget that is before the board tonight. And again, the insurance, health, and property we're still waiting on. So this is the school budget. The town budget, we really haven't changed much, and I'll go over that in a few minutes. But the school budget itself, last year in their operating budget, we had enough funds to appropriate $20,934,000. In addition to that $20 million, the town approved $500,252 of free cash for a total budget last year of $21,435,000. But when we come into this season, we need to start at the operating budget. So we started at $20 million. The new revenue, which has come into town, their 54% split is $1.1 million for a total of $22 million. The number down there on the bottom right, $23,097,000, is what the school department has requested. They did a great presentation the other night before the Finance Committee, explaining why they needed those funds and some of the issues that they're dealing with. I guess my recommendation, this will be my recommendation to the board, the operating budget at 22 million, that's the middle column, just under the 1.146. To recommend giving the school the additional Chapter 70 funds, which is just a little more than 100,000, but we're recommending 100,000. So the additional money over what was in the preliminary budget, so the 240,000, they would get their 54% split plus an additional 100,000. So they're essentially getting 100% of the new revenue. It's a little less than that, about 97%. We're also looking at proposing that we pay off the campground and use free cash to pay off the campground. That'd free up for the school $70,200 for the operating budget. And then we're looking at possibly giving them some free cash, or that's up to the board, but how that works needs to be discussed. We're looking at about $400,000. That gets them up to 22,651, which is about $1.2 million over last year's money, even with the free cash. It's about a 5.7% increase over last year's budget. When we looked at the 5-year plan, we kind of determined that for budgeting purposes, we should be looking at 3.5% a year increase in our budgets. We cannot support 5-6% year after year. This year we did pretty well with new revenue for a number of different reasons, but going forward, we're probably going to be closer to 3.5%. This would buy them some time, possibly for another year. They'll still have some cuts, but that is what I'd be recommending to the board.
If we could stop on that point, just to be clear, I think that is clear, but I just want to reiterate. So I'm looking at that, but you have given us a piece of paper. It's basically the same thing, just laid out a little bit differently. Your recommendation is for a 5.7% for the schools versus their request of 7.8%. And last year, it might even be here, but the amount that we gave them with the free cash wasn't it 5 point something? I'm going to say 5.4, but thereabouts.
5.41%, yes.
Yeah, so what we're doing here, if we went with this proposal that you have recommended, we'd be basically giving the schools the same percentage of increase this year as we had last year. What I think is good news there, and I hope it's good news for the schools, in that prior to that, in one of our discussions, I think it was with the Finance Committee and the schools, we talked about the fact that in prior years the schools had lesser increases. So it seemed that there was pressure building, expense pressure I'm talking about, and I was totally supportive of what we did last year. And we're doing it again this year. Long term, I agree with you, it's probably unsustainable, but this year's now we have the money. It seems fair, it's less than they're looking for. So I just wanted to put that out there for discussion. It seems reasonable based on all that we know and have looked at.
And the thought is to reduce their reliance on free cash, right? Last year was 500,000. If we can bring it down to 400,000 this year, next year maybe 300,000, and get them down to zero in a few years.
Of course, that'll depend on free cash at that time, right? So we've got a way to go, but this year we're taking a smaller step and just saying we want to cut that back by 100,000, but we'll supplant it with other funds. And the campground money, is that the total amount of campground money that's freed up from refinancing or finishing the financing, or is there more to it and this is a piece of it?
This is a piece of it, so it'd be $130,000 to pay it off, and I'm sorry, what we would pay in the operating budget would be $130,000. So the school's 54% would be 70, and we'd get about
Okay.
$60,000 on the town side.
Okay, so there's consistency there with the 46. Okay, understood. Okay, do you want to stop and discuss that uniquely, or do you have more to talk about in terms of the whole budget?
We can go on here, we can go on.
What is the pleasure of the committee?
I just want to say I support this proposal for the school budget. I think it doesn't get them all they wanted, but I think we were really creative about trying to get them as much as we can. So I actually think this is very nicely done, that you found the right kind of compromise here.
Other comments? Are there other pieces in the budget we need to talk about tonight that have?
Yes, on the
questions
town
about?
side. So with the budget and the revenue that, with the state assessments coming down a bit and the state revenue increasing slightly, plus we built up our revenues, our local receipts slightly, we have about $185,000 that I have not allocated as of yet on the town side. But I want to point out, before we get that, we've made cuts already to our budget, right? So on the general side of the government, we've cut $46,000, public safety, $64,000, public works, $62,000, human services, $6,000, and pension insurance, we reduced $50,000. The assessors overlay, we reduced $141,000. So before we even brought the budget to the Board of Selectmen in December, we had cut $370,000. And that was based on instructions to the departments to give us level services budgets with just the contractual raises in it. So we did not have any fluff in the budget to begin with. We had identified about 6 or 7 positions that I felt were critical. Local building inspector, a building clerk is part-time. It would be great to get her up to full-time. Engineer or project manager has been mentioned. Highway staff, we've been short highway staff for years. The fire department, there's been a plan in place to add additional personnel to the fire department over the years, and I think they're one more position that they were looking for. The SRO officer will probably be one of the positions cut from the school department budget with the present allocation. And then, you know, at some point, we're going to need a human resource director or assistant town administrator, financial director here in town. Cemetery employee, that I think we're okay with that right now, but the other positions are all critical. So, you know, so we had $500,000-$600,000 in critical needs. So we had close to $1 million in expenses, or we had close to $1 million in needs that we're not fulfilling right now. But out of those positions, we have roughly $185,000. I would like to see a local building inspector hired. The department currently has one building inspector, one clerk, and one part-time clerk, and there's a tremendous amount of work that goes through that department. I think that's one position that should be considered. We've mentioned the engineer or project manager, somebody part-time or somebody full-time, and how that's set up, we'd have to talk and look into a little bit how that's structured with the existing departments. I don't have that answer for you right now, but we, you know, with the sewer and water project, whether it gets constructed this year or not, just the design, just bringing it and keeping it in the forefront, we need somebody to champion that project. We have, you know, the routes, 177 Gifford Road Roundabout, 177 Tickle Road Roundabout, the Gifford Road 177 traffic light. We have the Drift Road Bridge. We have a Hicks Bridge landing project. I mean, there's a number of projects here in town that really need some oversight, or more oversight than they're currently getting. So I'd like the board to consider that position as well.
What is that, for now, we're just talking about the amount of money. We don't have to decide those
We
individual
have to
issues.
decide on the department.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Are you answering my question?
It'd be preferred, right? So we gotta submit the budget to the finance committee after this meeting. So the board needs to vote on the overall budget tonight. Doesn't mean we can't amend the budget or consider other things. If we can make a decision tonight on the positions, that's great.
But what are you proposing here? I'm not clear.
My suggestion was I think we need a local building inspector. That's about $65,000, and I think we need a town engineer or project manager, which, depending on whether it's part-time or full-time, could be anywhere from $80,000 up to $120,000.
And you want to put them in the budget that we're
Yes.
going to approve tonight? Okay, now, I'm clear on that. Questions?
Jim, so that online permitting that they got the grant for,
Mhm.
I mean, how are they moving forward with that? Because I think the engineer, and, because one of the things, they're gonna be able to, you know, create these permits, and that should be probably under the engineer. I mean, he can inspections, he can, you know, there's a funding source right there for paying that position, and we get this up and running. The online permitting with the building inspector, I mean, everything's gonna go, all the departments are gonna feed into that. And I think the engineer over the top would setting up licenses and permits and all this other stuff, I mean, we've got to kind of act sooner than later.
Did you see an engineer doing permits and whatnot? That wasn't what I am envisioning, but
Most of them usually public works related.
I know they touch base on the bigger projects, but I mean, general permits and stuff. All right.
I mean, we can use them for, the planning board can use them for site inspections. I mean,
Well, yes, that makes sense.
and we can bill the
Right.
developer for the site inspection.
Right. No, I support that position already. So can we get a dollar amount of what he's suggesting, so we know what
He's
to do?
suggesting adding $65,000 to the building department personnel line item and adding $120,000 to which department's personnel line item?
Engineer?
I think you should go highway.
So put the engineering project manager under the highway department?
Yes.
That's what it was last time. All right.
So that's what he's
Part-time-
recommending.
Oh, you said, through the chair, you don't have the part-time position included in that, the secretary? Or administrative assistant, whatever it is?
There is in the budget some additional funding in their salary account for an assistant over there.
All right, so I'll move those recommendations that you asked for, those departments. The 120 to the highway and 65 to which?
Building.
The building, yes. That's what I'm moving.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Does that do it? Just move along pretty quick. Do those numbers in those departments fit? And they
Yes.
fit in the context of the whole budget? And that includes what we've already discussed about the schools?
That's correct.
Okay. Further discussion?
So I'm going to vote no on the amendment because I don't think we should be adding full-time positions right now. I appreciate that it's probably going to go to make this change for the budget, but I don't think this is the time we should be adding a six-figure salary position. I think we should fund that from free cash and have contracts do it. But I appreciate and respect the people who want to add that in there because I do think those positions are necessary. I'm worried about not funding a school resource officer. When we took that school resource officer out of the schools, there was an outcry. And I worry a lot about adding a project manager and not having a school resource officer.
So the school resource officer, the chief said that he will be able to fill that position unless there's a specific, if they have a couple of people that go on get injured or out on leave or go into the military leave, that could force them to pull out. But right now, he says he didn't want to commit to that for more than this year, but he feels that he can at least fill that position. The other option is you could do it possibly out of ARPA for the engineer and fund a 2 or 3 year contract out of ARPA funds.
Okay. In terms of further discussion, I just had to mention this. My earlier question regarding putting it into the departments, I had the notion that, incorrectly, that money would be our money, ours meaning the town side, to figure out how to use it and have the discussion. But of course, we have to submit the budget with all the parts. That's our dilemma of a sort for tonight. I see argument here. I'm not in a hurry to add full-time positions of a six-figure amount based on our overall budget problems. However, we do have to meet the timeline here. But it can be amended. The Finance Committee will certainly react. But I just want to be clear, this doesn't change the school amount.
It does not.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see arguments both ways. Anyway, further discussion?
Just that I mentioned, when we talked about this a few weeks ago, I mentioned looking into it a little deeper to justify the engineer. I didn't really have much support. So we certainly could use the engineer. We had one years ago. Wasn't the right fit for the job, in my opinion, but there's a lot of work that can be done. Even on the town side, the engineer was, when I was on Concom, came before us regarding the beach issues, expanding Cherry Web, handling the issues at Cherry Web. There's stuff you don't even think about right now. Maybe the plot off of Drift Road, that's our property that they want to do something with. There's so many different things that it's justified, in my opinion. I'm not thrilled about adding the position either, but we need to address what's coming at us.
A question. Bob, on the sewer contract, when it goes out to bid, I mean, they're gonna, in that bid contract, they'll have something that will pay for supervision, right?
OPM.
I mean, if we had an engineer working for the town, can he charge to inspect through that contract, where they pay the town? This goes out to bid, and they pay the town back for our engineer to inspect the work.
Yes, that's possible. And if you fill the engineering position and we now subcontract, developers pay for their engineering reviews of projects that are before the planning board, if that position were filled and you had someone competent to do that work, we could charge developers for that work.
But we'd need a PE for that, though. We'd need a PE for that review.
Well, Jim, or Sean, if you want to chime in on this, because it's your idea, if we didn't do what you were suggesting, what could we do? Where would we keep that money?
Well, it could go into free cash for the following year. It could be put aside, maybe cover raises, something in the future. We can find use for that money. It's not going to disappear.
Well, let me be more specific. In terms of our proposal we're going to submit to the Finance Committee, where would those dollars, whatever the total was, they wouldn't see those dollars because they're not in those departments that you enumerated.
Right, so it would just be excess revenue at the end of the budget.
Well,
There's a number of places we could put it, right? We could put it in the assessors overlay, we could build that back up. You can see we've made some cuts in some of the other departments, expense accounts. OPEB, you can always put it in.
Stabilization. Okay.
but we're putting it in, I'm looking like for a placeholder thing. We'd be putting it in, but now it's in those departments. We don't want it to be in those departments, really. We want it to be for the purposes you stated.
Then you have to put them in that department.
So I was looking like, is there a reserve fund, you put it in there, then we have the debates on the engineer and the police officer and the inspector, the building inspector.
We have to appropriate it to a specific line items. We either do that or we just leave it and it'll roll over into free cash the following year.
Well, the thing we could do is just plug them in, let the vote go where it goes. This can all be the subject of debate at the town meeting. We could even amend our own prior action. Our prior action is simply recommendation to the Finance Committee. We're not spending money tonight, we're appropriating anything, we're recommending to the Finance Committee. So.
Yeah, so the motion is to put it in the building inspector and the highway department.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you were asking for, anyway.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, okay. Further discussion? Does anybody from the public wish to speak on this issue? Okay, time to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The vote, then, I take it, is 4 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion carries. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
The last position is more of a policy. We discussed possibly putting the beach issues, or not the beach committee, but having the recreation department more involved with the beach committee. Beach committee has agreed to use $5,000 from their enterprise fund to offset some of the salary in the recreation department. If the board is interested in doing that, we could do that. I would increase the recreation director's hours by about 2.5 hours a week, year-round, to do that additional work. The beach committee has been kind of on the fence back and forth. They were okay with it, and then they weren't too excited about it. I think they're in favor of it now, but I don't know for sure.
Is the item you're discussing on the agenda?
Well, it's part of the budget.
We just voted on the budget.
No, we just voted on amending the two line items.
I see, okay. All right. So you could gross that 5,000 that you're talking about, and we'll vote on the entire budget. I see, okay. I thought you were adding something onto it. That was different from our discussion. Got it.
Were you
Okay.
watching? Oh, boy.
Questions, comments?
Christopher showed up, getting nervous.
He's been there for like an hour.
He's been there. He's
Focus,
been there.
people, focus.
You just can't see him.
We have
His budget is going into, so he's scared.
Have you presented everything that's in the budget, your budget recommendation?
That is my recommendation, yes.
I move that we forward the budget as discussed tonight to the finance committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None on that one, so that one passes unanimously.
So
Thank
just to be
you.
clear, that includes the recreation, it doesn't?
It does.
It does.
Yeah, that was,
As recommended.
yes. Okay, good,
So
good.
the only, just to be clear, the only credit will be, the balance in that revenue will be $5,000 less.
Yes, that's what we
Money.
understood.
Yeah.
To the extent we understood it. Okay, that completes all those action items. Thank everybody for their patience. The next item is discussion. I'm going to do a little preamble here, but it's the East Beach Road discussion. So a little bit of background on this. By prior action of the Select Board, recognizing the multiple facets of the East Beach situation, we asked the Planning Board to sort of take over the project. I don't know if that's the right words here, Bob, but in effect, that's what we did. So our role here is a little bit more subdued for the moment, I stress. However, we've had a harmonious discussion with the East Beach people for some time now, particularly relates to a former lawsuit that was resolved. We agreed to work together and listen to each other. So I just want to introduce the topic by saying to the people who are here tonight to talk about it, that we're not here to make decisions on the East Beach situation. We're here to talk about it and get views and thoughts. I did ask that it be fairly brief, whatever that means. So that's the context of this. That's why it's under discussion and not as an action item. We're not taking specific action because we decided we weren't going to do that. So with that in mind, I think we have representatives here. Do you wish to come forward? You can sit here. Usually people who are presenting, and you're like presenters, will have you come here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Kurt, President of East Beach Improvement Association. This is a matter that's important to us, and I would think to the town as a whole. In certain aspects, you know, the East Beach corridor, if you will, that road, does serve as an economic road, if you will, because, you know, the impacts of that, you know, the economic impacts, I'll just go with one of my notes here, on East Beach Road. You've got commercial fishermen, farmers, tourists, property owners that all use the road. You've got the restaurant on either end, whether it be the Back Eddy or Bayside, you know, and landscaping business, the Sylvan Nursery, which directly rely on it for economic stimulation. You know, the environmental impact of the fortifications of East Beach coastline benefit the town as well as all of these people that have interests. So, you know, we want to keep this up front with everyone involved. The Board of Selectmen, we had a good engagement with the Planning Board, and you know, we've come up with a proposal that we brought last month, right after the first storm, right before the second storm, in regards to finding out how the town was going to direct the highway department to act. And after that second storm, you know, the process that the town had used continued to some extent, well, to most extent, and it directly impacts the survival of that road. We know that the road took some damage in a couple other areas, and some of that material, well, most of that material was used to try and shore that area up. But now there's talk of the coastline changing. And the coastline has changed a large part due to the fact that that material is no longer there. It's been relocated. And you know, there is some questionable practices that were used, which kind of conflict a little bit with DEP. There seems to be two schools of thought. Your tree falls in my yard, it's my problem. If my rocks go on your road, it's your problem. But you also got the fact that the Environmental Protection Act does not allow for materials to be moved away from that coastline area, which will cause a direct impact. Now, you know, Jim and I have had some discussion, and you know, there was two sides to that problem. The material was relocated, not necessarily taken out of the ecosystem. However, it does directly impact your road as well as the landowners that are there. So, You know, I'm grateful for the opportunity that you guys deferred with us to the planning board. That way it doesn't take up a ton of your time. But we also need to be able to solve this problem because here we are on we've got another storm coming tomorrow. Does the town have a plan? We submitted a plan in the January 8th meeting for review, and it is now February 12th, and we never even got a response to our emails. And I had handed this out to you guys, looking for some sort of, we do have it again if anybody wants to refresh their memory. So I guess the question becomes, I had 7 or 8 different points I wanted to make, but I think the most important one is, what are we gonna do if it happens again? And how are we gonna direct the highway department to do it? I spoke with Mr. Hartnett last week, and the suggestion was, do you put it out to bid? Do you have, because it's a burden on the town to clear the road. You have to do something with it. The town is worried about putting it back on private property, or so it seems.
Let me interject here. What you have written, which I have a copy of as well, is something personally I embrace that. However, on that, that's got to take some legal review that has ramifications. The planning board has to have at it and say, if you do this, this is what this means. So on that, there's going to be no action on that tonight, as you might have expected. The other question is more, I'll call it operational. That I can't answer that. I think that the highway department will do what they do and do well, I think, is to clear the road and do it with an understanding that these materials should stay there, as we've discussed many times. But I will ask Jim to answer the question as to what would we do from a practical standpoint should the same event occur tomorrow morning, which it might.
So I guess the priority itself is to get the road open, right? So they need to get out there quick, they need to get the road open, and they need to defend, or they need to put the material so that the road doesn't get washed out any further than it has in the past. So that is probably the priority. I think anything after that, if there's additional material, and I think they did that to a certain extent with the last storm, is they pushed it off to the side. You know, you got 2 or 3 feet of material in front of most of those lots right now. So I think it was, for the most part, it was started. You know, the next storm, maybe we look at it a little differently. If we can barrier up those ends of the beach first and get it done quickly, then anything left, we can push off to the side.
I think the greatest concern we have is going forward, we've been urged and successfully have had all the landowners get nourishment, notices of intent with orders of conditions, in order to be able to fill up to the high tide mark, which is what the order of conditions allows. If someone were to invest $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, truckloads of that cobble are not cheap. We've estimated somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 a truckload, because sand is just going to wash away. A combination of both might be in someone's interest. If these people nourish this over the next few weeks or month or two, which we've at least made an effort through a private contractor to push some of the stuff back and start cleaning up the area, because obviously it's of interest to us as much as the town in general. You know, clean up the area, it's unsightly, it also needs to be fortified. You know, you got a resiliency study that was done that showed that that beach needed to be fortified. And the fact that the stuff is relocated doesn't really help the situation. So if people do this at their own expense, what's going to happen with a nor'easter in April before the permit process, which I thank you, Paula, is going out soon, and everybody will have that opportunity to, you know, apply for their permits and meet the different criteria that need to be done. But once we do the beach nourishment, what's going to happen if it gets pushed on the road again? So that's kind of what we're looking for. Keeping it in the Board of Selectmen's mirror, if you will, in the window, but also looking to work with the planning board to come up with a reasonable solution. And there's a lot of different scenarios going around, whether it be you know, looking for grant money to possibly help some of the landowners, and maybe if they wanted to give up their land. I'm looking to the thought of, if you want to do that, maybe we could find grant money to help some of these people do beach nourishment. because that was a suggestion of the resiliency climate study
Mhm.
from 3 years ago. So a managed retreat, a slow retreat, helping these people to some extent versus just abandoning the whole idea, doesn't sound like too much to ask for.
Mhm. Well, Jim, to the extent that you've been working on this already and know these pieces, at least for the time being, we have that understanding more or less articulated by this gentleman tonight. That's-
Yeah, we can talk to the highway surveyor and see if we can get that done. But again, it's difficult, right? You know, we were down there right after the storm. You
Yeah.
got telephone poles, you got decks, you got sheds, you got, you know, it's difficult to differentiate and to kind of put things aside nice and neat for, you know, I think we could do a little bit more, but I think for the most part, you know, once they got the ends fortified, they pushed the material off to the side. And it's not just the material landing in the road, right? The material across the road, it's on all the lots on the north side. You could actually see the material in the let on the other side in the river. So, you know, quite a bit of material didn't just land on the road. You know, a good portion of it did, and it was moved around. But
Okay.
I guess I'm trying to be a little cautious about committing and saying, yes, we'll put
Yeah,
all the
no,
material on the side of the lot, because in reality and practicality, you just can't do that all the time.
But I think that's understood, isn't it? Yeah. It'll be a good faith effort, I would assume, that we would try to do it.
I'd like to
preserve
talk to the highway
Yeah.
surveyor and just make sure there's no other issues before I
Okay.
commit, but I think it's something we should look at.
I just want to, like, one of the questions about when you said put it out to bid. So we can't afford to put it out to bid.
Mhm.
Highway during regular hours, if it's not a state of an emergency, if it gets declared a state of emergency, we get money for that, but when it's happening, it's not necessarily declared a state of emergency, so if it doesn't happen and we put it out to bid, we gotta pay them guys. Highway also is if they're not plowing snow when they're doing that, and it does get a state of emergency, we can get reimbursed overtime money. But the regular 40 hours, we're paying them anyway, so we can't afford to do that either, but I think it's a happy medium, you know.
Okay, any other things you wanted to talk about?
Tony, did you have anything you wanted to add? I think we covered everything. I don't know if you had anything, just we'll keep it brief because we know it's a
Yeah,
long
just a
meeting.
quick question. So I think we have the policy that we submitted to be evaluated. What's the process for getting that looked at and adopted?
Well, I think the select board, as usual, would look for the recommendation of the appropriate committee. That would be the planning board, who's responsible, so to speak, not that we're out of it, for bringing it all together. So we'd be asking the planning board to have look at it and see if how does that fit in the puzzle?
So we could give this at our next planning board meeting,
I would suggest you do that.
suggest that, and then they'll direct you guys in order to maybe tell Highway what to do, or how to approach it, I say, maybe not what to do, but how to approach it.
Well, as Mr. Olet is mentioning, that's got to be reviewed legally
Mm-hmm.
and understood as to how it works in real life, what are the ramifications.
We'll take any input we can get.
But the planning board is the place to go on this. And the planning board should be aware of that request, which I think is a reasonable request if it can be done.
Would a private option be an option, and to take some of the burden off the town?
Well,
Find a bonded contractor who's carrying a bond, who might be able to do that stuff, because he's on a town road, but not regularly, but in order to help clear the road.
well,
Options to
The
think
residents
about.
are gonna pay that? Is that what you're saying?
It's an option. I mean, all things on the table. We're trying to solve a problem. So if we could get some of the residents, but the problem is, it would become costly every single time you had a bad storm. You know, it's sometimes, some people refer to as it's similar to plowing snow, but snow moves a little bit easier than tons of rocks.
So one of the things, if we hire a contractor to do that as a town, we're gonna have to pay them prevailing rate. So what you're looking at, inflation on your cost for the tailings, I mean, it's the same thing with what that loader from a private contractor's gotta charge the town, or you, they're working on a town road. It's gonna be substantial. It's gonna be a lot more than what highway is. I mean, highway's our best
option.
Bang for the buck.
Okay. With that, I'd like to thank the board for its time to at least allowing us to be here and keep this in the forefront, because it's important to us. And, you know, granted, we're down the far end of town, but in the summertime, everybody enjoys it, and it does, even in the wintertime, provide a vital interest to everyone in town. And I think we can all agree to that.
No, one of the things that you brought up, you know, about the different places, I wasn't thinking about, I've done a lot of business with some vans over the years. So you think about it, the times that they leave out with their trucks. I mean, they're not impacting the neighborhoods with the school buses and all that other stuff. They gotta be coming out 88. I mean, I bought trailer loads out of them, so there's a lot of heavy equipment that's coming out that road to 88, so.
Any decisions have to take
I can't
everything into
imagine
account,
the
commerce.
economic benefit to them coming out that way versus trying to go right through town.
So we'll continue to keep it in the forefront and keep the open dialogue like
Definitely.
we want to do with everyone, you know, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. Be well.
Look, tomorrow, let's hope there's no impact.
Yeah. Okay, that concludes 3. The next item is 4, the town administrator report. Jim? We have it in the package, of course.
Yeah, we've talked about the governor's budget. That's out there, but the governor also filed legislation for the Municipal Empowerment Act, which has a number of different provisions in it that could potentially benefit the town. I'm not going to go into detail into all of them. It is part of your packet, and I just kind of wanted to bring attention to it. It's still in the
Could
early
you give us a
process.
little teaser here? What would be a clear
Sure.
benefit in your view? Just one.
So it contains local options for revenue raises, including a new motor vehicle excise surcharge, which would be a local option that the town could adopt if this gets approved. It relieves numerous administrative burdens, including reforms to procurement rules that raise thresholds for competitive bids and remove onerous publishing requirements. Anything we do, any purchases we do, any services, it's a tedious process for the community to do. So any relief from that would be helpful.
Okay.
And updating just a number of different small things. And again, whether or not this gets approved, we don't know to what form, but I think it's a step in the right direction that could potentially help us. Town hall improvements, I just wanted to note, I'm still in the process of getting additional estimates to replace the garage doors outside and on the garage. They're in poor condition. We've gone through CPC last year to get funding for painting the entire building here, all the trim, all the white, and fix it. Talking to a couple of contractors on the state bid list, they were looking in excess of $300,000 to do it. They're saying they would need staging up on top of the roof to paint the cupola up there, and it's just not an easy process. And like Mr. Saws said, we have to pay prevailing wage, and it gets expensive. So
Sleet tiles up there, too.
So we're looking to kind of scale back the project and maybe just get the entrances painted and cleaned up, get the railing fixed that's not attached outside. It'll probably be in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, but it would dress it up quite a bit. So I'm waiting on estimates for those two items. Both would probably be in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. The garage doors would be they would be residential garage doors. They wouldn't be commercial. The building inspector and maintenance staff here just got their new truck in that they're going to be sharing, splitting during the day, and they'll be able to park that in the garage, which would be helpful.
The painted garage.
And then the painted door, the doors would be replaced. And we're not doing any painting, just the doors.
Door garage.
And just a couple of design updates. Route 177, the design public hearing will be held on March 20th, 2024 at 6:30. That'll be a remote meeting. We'll get that information up on the website in the next couple of weeks. The Drift Road Kirby Brook Bridge project, that public meeting has been rescheduled to March 7th, Thursday, March 7th at 6 o'clock. That'll also be a virtual meeting. Broadcasting of these meetings, we're still working with Spectrum. We've sent out a few emails. John's been calling. I've been calling. We have not received any return phone calls or any response yet, but we're still nagging them the best we can to see if we can get that connection made. It's Spectrum that we're waiting for to make that connection so that we can broadcast live.
But I understand that people can go live on the streaming and view the meeting.
That's
in
correct.
real time.
So there's a link in the report. There's also a link on the town website that will allow you to go to YouTube to watch them live as well. We're also waiting on Spectrum to return the signed contract. For the cable contract, it's been, I think, at least over 6 months since we've had it signed. Irene Buck, the chair of the committee, Cable Advisory Committee, was in today, and she noted that. And, she's requested that we contact the town attorney to send another letter to them to see if we can get them to move on that. So
Please
it's tough
do.
to get any response on.
No.
They want the business, right? I mean, we,
Terrible.
You know, they don't seem to be in any rush, and according to Irene, that a number of communities have negotiated contracts. They've been in no rush to send the signed contract back. Sometimes it takes a year, could take a year and a half.
well, but people are still getting internet and TV and
They
phone
are,
and
yes.
Rate increases.
Rate increases.
rate increase, I noticed the other day, yeah.
That's all I have.
All right, any questions for Jim on any of this material? Okay, the next item is to approve the minutes of January 22nd, meeting.
I have
Move them.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, none, that's unanimous. Next item is report on the bill warrant. I had the opportunity to do that because I was in town.
Excitement in life.
And everything was, it's in your package, $2.1 million in warrants. And everything was pretty normal and usual and unexciting, which was just the way we like it. That does not need to be voted on. Next item is Selectmen Liaison Committee Reports and Suggestions for Future Agenda Discussion Action. I'll start with the side with Ann.
I just had a Westport Affordable Housing Trust Committee. We discussed mostly the duplex on Sodom Road. They were setting it up for the Affordable Housing Committee to take a tour of it. So if any of you guys want a tour of it with them, I can forward you the information and the contact person. It is a little bit over budget. They're working on figuring that out. It's not really Westport's problem, but it's Habitat for Humanity's issue. So they're working on that now.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Thank you. Shauna?
Like many of you, I attended the infrastructure meeting that we talked about earlier and the joint budget meeting with the school committee and the finance committee. Yeah, you did that. You were there. We did have an internet advisory committee meeting, so that was, we talked earlier about the MLP. We wanted to get the lawyers started on that, and then the warrant article that we're proposing coming up. There's a climate resilience committee meeting later this week.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. The only thing, I have 2 items. There was an audit committee meeting. It was brief because we don't have the fiscal year 23 audit completed yet, but it's nearing completion. And we'll be meeting again sometime probably in early March when we have the report. And as usual, after the audit committee meets with Mr. Roselli, we offer the opportunity to the select board. Usually is, remotely, but that's been very effective in the past. The other thing, we need to add something to the agenda next time. It's hard to believe that time is flying, but Jim's contract, he's in the last year, so it has to be renewed. I think it's September.
Yes.
September 1. What I'd like to do at the next meeting is post this and then ask for 2 volunteers who would work with Jim in terms of the contract renewal. So if somebody could think about that in the meantime, but we have to post it. We didn't post it for tonight.
If you're gonna do it, I'll do it too, whatever. I gotta do fire with Jim coming up, so.
Well, this should be posted. Because
Should put the committee to review it?
We'll appoint a committee of 2, and so we should just do the formality of doing
All right.
it.
Generally, the chair has a lot of input, obviously, I don't know if you guys work the closest with him, so. Okay.
Yeah, well, there are pros and cons to that. Okay, but we can talk about that. That'll be posted, and it'll be quick. Anything else? You? Well, I'm done.
All right.
No, Judge.
Now we had that meeting, it went over well, and thank you, and like I said then, it was really good to have a crowd, if you will, that was paying attention. Robbie was a star. But everybody was paying attention. There was no chatter, no playing on the phones. It really was good to have a meeting that went like that. For upcoming meetings, if you could we just get an update from Sue on tax title, see what's outstanding?
Tax title? Okay.
Yeah, I usually ask for it like every 6 months or a year. And if we, I haven't seen it for a while, maybe because Denise was out, is our outstanding water and whatnot, if there's any issues there. That's really, overdrawn. That's just some of our revenue
Fine.
sources we want to stay on top of, that's all.
I'm sure she'd be glad to do that for us.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll put that on the next one or the one after that?
Yeah, just send me an update, that could just be an email, it doesn't have to necessarily be on the agenda.
All right, I'll let Jim work on that with Sue, and we'll get the information one way or the other. Okay, anything else?
Just for now, thank you.
Yeah?
Pretty much the same. I was on that oversight committee, and we covered pretty much everything today, so.
Yeah.
I would hope so. If we didn't, we got deeper problems, somebody. Okay, well, thank you. The next item is 8, comments and statements. These are comments and statements from the public. I don't know if the public people have any comments or statements. I guess not, so we'll move on. There is a boards and committee vacancy list. We're making progress, but it's still a way to go, as it shows on the next page. And now, the next item is topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting. I'm not aware of any. Jim, are you aware of any? Okay.
Just the storm.
Whoop.
Storm.
Storm tomorrow.
Oh, the storm. Well, just mention it, I guess.
What would you like us to do?
Basketball committee was supposed to cancel.
Oh, school's canceled.
So, do you want to leave to the town administrator's discretion about what to do about the town hall
That's
employees?
what you get.
What isn't that what we usually do?
Which she didn't actually say.
Usually it's a consensus of the board to allow the town administrator or if the chair calls it.
But the board was meeting tonight, so
So,
we were kind of hunting, I think.
Looking at the weather, it's getting more down
Yeah,
the
it is.
south end. It was supposed to be more of a northerly, we were gonna get more rain, but that shifted. And the timing of the storm is not that good. I would suggest canceling work tomorrow.
For non-essential employees.
For non-essential.
Plenty of our employees have to work
Not you
tomorrow.
guys.
You guys,
You guys are on.
you're working sleep now because
What time is it supposed to hit?
It's supposed to
like
start
early morning, I'm going in
7, 8 o'clock, 7
Yeah, 7 or
o'clock.
8, and then 2 inches an hour till
I thought it
noontime.
was supposed to start like early in the morning.
So
Heavy wet stuff too.
So what's going on here is, we're not
Can we just follow?
giving the authority to the town administrator because they refer to us to make the decision.
I will move that we let them take the day off tomorrow, if non-essential employees.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
We can blame it on them.
Well, wait, what do you need from it? It's not to let them take the day off. We want to close town hall.
we're closed down hall.
We want to close town hall and the associated, you
Just
know,
non-essential.
All non-essential employees.
all, yeah, there you go, non-essential employees.
No, does the motion include advice to not only employees, but to the public and the website?
Well, we
Guys, we
quality
have
of
snow
update.
all the time and not the day after a meeting. Why are we going through all this right now? I don't understand.
Well, you made the motion. I was just going to have
I
you do
just
it.
want it over.
All right.
She's
well,
just trying to move along the meeting. So withdraw your motion. I withdraw the second.
So it's up to you.
Jim, what do
Okay,
you want
I'm
to
gonna
do?
recommend that it be canceled.
There you go.
Fine, that's fine.
Make it happen.
That's totally within your authority as we see it. Well done. We will support any decision that you make, and if it rains and there's no snow, then you can all come to work, right?
No, but it's nice if you close, like the school department, they canceled now, so the employees know that they can sleep tomorrow morning. If you're not on the highway department or the fire and police.
This is
That
good.
doesn't
We
help
don't
our
even go
contract.
live anymore, so we didn't even help anybody, 'cause no one knows what
No,
we're
but
talking
Jim
about.
is gonna
Oh,
execute
no, they'll
the,
know tonight. If they don't know, I'm
Paul
working on
is
it
gonna
already.
execute the phone
We thought we
tree.
all know already.
Yeah, they were all gonna watch. A lot of them were like, we can watch the meeting, right?
Okay, I think we got this one down. Okay, the next item is executive session. Pursuant to the provisions of MGL C30A, Section 21A, Chair declares an open meeting will have a detrimental effect to A, discuss Step 2 grievance filed by AFSCME, Council 93, Local 1701. B, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, AFSCME, Council 93, Local 1701. C, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation per and polyfluorinated substances, so-called PFAS. And D is to approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2024. We will come back into open session only for the purpose of adjourning the open meeting.
So move, Steve Willett.
Second, Shawna Sheeple.
This requires a roll call vote. Manny?
Manny Suarez, aye.
Aye, Steve Willett.
Aye, Richard Brewer.
Aye, Shawna Sheeple.
I am Boxler.
We are in executive session.